It's showtime.
Okay! Tokyo! South America! Australia! France! Germany! UK!
Here we go. Head on with Bob Kincaid. 3 hours of conversation, cussin' and a discussin' with America's only born and bred Southern liberal talk host. Head on with Bob Kincaid is brought to you each night by Coal River Mountain Watch. Coal River Mountain Watch invites you to become part of the solution, part of a sustainable future, part of the uprising against mountaintop removal. Coal River Mountain Watch, crmw.net. And now, from high in the hills of beautiful West Bicod, Virginia, here's Bob Kincaid on the Head On Radio Network.
Well, howdy. And here we go, off and running for this 13th day of March 2019. Only 2 days from the Ides. Not that anybody pays attention to the Ides anymore, except maybe me. No, it's the 13th. It's Wednesday, downhill to Friday, hump day. Yeah, right, yeah. But of course, it's ever so much more than that, brethren and sistren. Because that means it's Prayer Meetin Wednesday on the horn. Yes, and more on that in a moment, but first we have thanks to send out. What was once upon a time the loneliest day of the month for subscribers is no longer. We have thanks to send out. Thanks indeed to, Gary and Gaia, who have held down the 13th of the month for a very long time. But also to a new subscriber, Greg. Thank you, Greg. And thank you very kindly to Kay for joining in on the fun and merriment that is the 13th of the month. So Kay and Greg and Gary and Gaia, thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed for being partial sponsors of the program. If you'd like to join the merriment that happens on the 13th, well, feel free between now and midnight. But anyway, that's where. Thank you very kindly, and thanks as well to our buddy Rusty, who jumped in after the program was over last night, and lo and behold, that means we have only $150 to raise this evening. The deacons are almost beside themselves with joy. They're thinking that maybe they won't be hauling those heavy brass-bound burgundy velvet-lined plates around the sanctuary all evening. Sanctuary. Sorry, it just happens with the word. But, brethren and sisters, I tell you what, we've had some magnificent days here. It looks like the groundhog may have been right. I don't know. Because it was gorgeous today, gorgeous yesterday, gorgeous Monday, gorgeous on Sunday. It's downright inspiring. Yes, it is. And so I guess maybe with Easter coming on at some point, I don't know when, I can't keep up. But every now and then, the little old blue-haired ladies in the Fellowship Hall kitchen there at the Cathedral of Common Sense for Prayer Meetin Wednesday they get to be a little bit silly. So when I asked them what was on the menu this evening, they said it was a conundrum. I said, well, I've never had conundrum. Is it fried or is it roasted? And they said, wait and see. And so I did. And lo and behold, conundrum it was. Because the little old blue-haired ladies had worked up a big batch of spicy deviled eggs, and then they followed it up with wings. Ah, see what they did there? Yeah. And so the deacons got right messy. The deviled eggs didn't stand a chance. And then they went after the hot wings, the buffalo wings, made a total mess of themselves, cleaned up as best they could before they went over and, following in on the egg theme, went after the lemon meringue pie. And, well, they're pretty happy. And being happy, they trundled their massive bulk up a couple of floors, a couple of flights of stairs, and went out into the parking lot where, at this moment, or until just almost up to this moment, they were out there chain smoking with the sinners. Sister, do you have a light? That sort of thing. Because 3 hours without nicotine, and it's kind of rough on them. But it didn't take long after Sister Carol Baker showed up at the vestibule door with the Horn solar-powered cattle prod, just crackling merrily away. Every once in a while, she'll take like a saltine and toss it into the air and just kind of zap it with the cattle prod, just to make sure the deacons understand that it really is on. Mm-hmm. And so they bodies at rest tend to remain at rest, and bodies in motion tend to remain in motion, and the difference between those two can be unsettling to behold in its inception. But the deacons did cease to be at rest, and they did tend to be very large, cumbersome, ponderous bodies in motion, and they stumbled and rumbled and bumbled past the vestibule door, through the vestibule, past that bowl of desiccating buttermints, and they're waiting down front, brethren and sisters, and hopefully, with as good as the day has been so far, when we start passing the plate around, folks won't sit on their wallets, and we'll knock out that $150 that we need to bring in order to stay even with the week. That's 15 people at $10 a piece, or 10 people at $15 a piece, right? And yes, Scott in San Diego with a note regarding conundrum. Then there's the new bride who called home to her mother in tears. She cried, "Oh, Mother, Jack just told me he was headed out to shoot craps with his pal Fred, and I have no idea how to cook them." That's not quite that's Scott. That's not nearly as good as zoo spokesman Claude Orably, but it'll have to do for the beginning of the program. You're shameless, yes. Oh, Mother, I don't even know how to cook them. And so the deacons are standing here, and we'll call the minister of music up here in a moment. And with every head bowed and every eye closed, brethren and sisters, we'll begin to pass the plate. Now, what good is passing the plate, you might ask, if everybody's got their heads bowed and their eyes closed? Well, you kind of keep one scrunched open. And hopefully, if everybody's got one scrunched open, none of the deities will take it out on us or anything, and nobody will get a closed head injury from getting whacked by one of the plates. So, with that in mind, let's bring the brethren and sisters, let's bring the minister of music forward for our offertory hymn. Amen. Glory.
And he said, it's time for you to leave behind the things of this world. The fine houses, the fancy cars, the flashy clothes, because we are all naked in the eyes of the Lord. Stop! This man is clinically insane!
Ladies and gentlemen, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, let me hear you say, Amen. Amen. Let me hear you say, praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
Let me hear you say, I will empty the contents of my wallet into that little collection plate when it comes around.
I will empty the contents of my wallet into that little plate when it comes around.
And it's all tax-free. Hallelujah! Praise the Lord for all the cash I've got. Praise Him for my Rolls Royce and my yacht. Serving God ain't hard with a credit card. Jesus died so I could make a lot. Praise the Lord, He's made us millionaires. Wave your donations in the air. We've replaced our hymns with ATMs, and soon we'll charge a fee on every prayer. Christ was a poor man, don't you know? He should have used our accountants for his cash flow. Stop the Sermon on the Mount, he should have had a bank account. 2,000 years with interest, he'd be rolling in the dough. Praise the Lord, this song's out on CD, just $40.95 plus GST. Hallelujah, plenty of moolah, solid gold baubles on my Christmas tree. I got all of heaven's riches, thanks to all you stupid bitches. Praise the Lord for modern Christianity, yeah. Whoever said religion should be free?
Oh, maresy dotes and nosy dotes and little lambsy divey, a kiddly divey too. Wouldn't you, brethren and sistren, wouldn't you? How glory! Welcome, welcome. I'm calling on you right now, brethren and sistren, because we don't have no ordinary prayer meeting Wednesday here. We do the altar call at the beginning. How? Amen, just so we can get it out of the way. So I'm calling on you to get up off of your seats, get onto your feet, wiggle and waggle and waddle and scrunch and screech and walk without rhythm so's you won't attract the worms. How? And come on down that blood-red aisle and fall upon your knees at the altar and lay your hands upon the subwoofer and feel the healing rays of common sense a-flowing through you from the server on high. I am Archpope, Uber Rabbi, Ultimate Imam, Animated Animist, Antagonized, Agnostic, Vicarious, Vicar, Maximum, Metropolitan, Munificent Mufti, Bob Kincaid. Amen. And this here is Prayer Meeting Wednesday, live from the Cathedral of Common Sense. Glory, glory, praise his holy name. Amen and amen. How? Brethren and sisters, I have grim news to report. Grim news to report from down there, up, over, down, under, in Austria. You know, down there south of China and whatnot. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There, at least the President of the United States probably thinks it's Austria. It's more like Australia. But brethren and sisters, there is a great persecuting going on. Oh, there is. The Church of Jesus Christ is being persecuted by the persecuting attorneys down there in Australia. Yes. Brethren and sisters, a perfectly good cardinal of the Roman Catholic Church has been convicted and sentenced to 6 years in some Australian hellhole prison. And why? Just for laying the healing hands of faith on a couple of choir boys. That's right. That's where our world's come to. He was trying to minister personally and faithfully to a couple of choir boys, and, well, I think he ministered a little too vigorously. And the next thing you know, he'd been charged with child sexual abuse. And now they've tried him in Australia, and they're going to put him in prison. And there he was, once upon a time, the very treasurer of the Vatican. Oh, brethren and sisters, I tell you what, it's dark times that we live in now. Oh, yes. Yes, it is. But that's just that's just one aspect of all of this. Back here in Merca, there are things to worry about as well. You may recall the head of the Family Research Council is Tony Norman, yes, Mother Bates, Perkins. And he's right smart worried about the President of the New 90 States of America. not too long back, he sent a letter out to all the people on the email list of your Family Research Council. By the way, in case anybody's keeping track, the Family Research Council started out with a mailing list that Tony Norman, yes, Mother Bates, Perkins, bought from Klansman, Grand Dragon, Ultimate Imperial Wizard, whatever he is, David Duke. And so the email went out, and it contained a pledge. The FRC Action Pledge Against Impeachment. And it's all tax-free. Hallelujah. It read, I, the undersigned, do solemnly pledge to stand with FRC Action to end the dishonest, politically motivated efforts to impeach our duly elected President Donald J. Trump, who wasn't really elected because he lost the popular vote, but became president through the operation of an anachronism from our filthy days of being a slave nation. Oh, I added all that last part. Since more than 2 years of exhaustive independent investigations have produced no evidence of any impeachable offense as defined in the Constitution, it's not really well defined in the Constitution. That's how they can get away with saying that. It is time to end this charade. It is clear this sustained attack is motivated not by criminal conduct, but by political opposition to President Trump's agenda supporting life, except when he's criticizing the governor of California for not killing people, conservative judges, like the ones who really enjoy beer and probably sexually abused a little girl when he was a teenager, lower taxes for billionaires, but not for the rubes, traditional values like having 5 children from 3 baby mamas, and defending faith, family, and freedom in America. The many grave duties of America's president. I had no idea he was a sexton. I knew he was a sex pervert, but not a sexton. And commander-in-chief include keeping our nation safe from all enemies, strengthening our alliances, and serving as the leader of the free world. Well, no, Angela Merkel's got that job now. And the only alliances he's trying to strengthen would be those with Russia and various strongman murderous dictators and that little feller with the bad golf pants and the worst haircut in North Korea. These vital roles are dangerously hindered by the constant threat of impeachment. Therefore, as an American citizen and member of FRC Action, I pledge to pray for our president and for an end to this politically motivated threat of impeachment. Uncle Jed, I was just over there on the Brando set. You know what they got, Uncle Jed? Motivation. They're just swimming in it. Politically motivated threat of impeachment and to support FRC Action's efforts for that purpose. Don't know what the purpose is he's got against the purpose. I don't know. Of course, along the way, you're supposed to send Tony Perkins some money. But it's not like he didn't warn him. He said, if Christian conservatives like you do nothing, President Trump won't stand a chance. Even though, oddly enough, the Speaker of the House herself has said that she doesn't have much interest in impeachment because Donald Trump just isn't worth it. Mm-hmm. Hey, wait a minute. That's good stuff. Wait, yeah. A little cowbell for Brother Deacon Asa there. I guess Cardinal Pell's autobiography will be titled Pell in a Cell? Fucks in Socks? Just spitballing here. Oh, it works for me, so you may have missed your calling. You could have been a big-time publisher there with top shelf A++ good titles like that, Brother Deacon Asa. Mm-hmm. Yes, brethren and sister, and I tell you what, it being how this is prayer meeting Wednesday. Well, we have to understand that It's not just the political world that is on fire with a bad case of the Ilhan Omars. No, the good God-fearing, upstanding, Bible-believing, Christ-centered, evangelical, fundamentalist, homosexual Christians, they're all plumb eat up with Ilhan Omar bruga-itis. And not least of those would be Chris McDonald. I swear every time I see a picture of him, he looks like an apprentice vampire. Not a lot of color. No. Kind of looks all sort of paled and drained. Yes, and Brother Usher Steve in New York says, "Oh, dear Bob. He's just asking the maggots to pray for Mr. President, just like he did for President Obama." Oh, wait. Never mind. No, because back in the 8 long years when we were when democracy was under assault by a Kenyan Muslim usurper, they weren't praying for Barack Obama. They were praying for God to smite Barack Obama. And as they said, make his wife a widow and his children orphans. That was 8 years of so-called imprecatory prayer from these fine, upstanding followers of the Prince of Peace, yeah. But Barack Obama's not in office anymore, so the good God-fearing, upstanding, Bible-believing, Christ-centered, evangelical, fundamentalist, homosexual Christians had to turn their attention to some other brown person. Hence, Chris McDonald.
She wants to abolish ICE, and she wants to abolish the Department of none other than Homeland Security. I wonder why. Because, you know why? She wants America not to have Homeland Security so her Islamic jihadist buddies can go run roughshod over this land.
Yeah, her Islamic jihadist buddies, for which there is not an iota of proof. I mean, I guess we're supposed to take it as read that she pals around with terrorists. Remember that line from back in the long gone? My God, it was 11 years ago now. The 2008 presidential campaign, pals around with terrorists. I guess what proves that is the fact that she wears the headgear. And I reckon that's enough for Chris Old McDonald.
Got in trouble a few weeks ago with our right-wing watch people for saying it. Well, guess what? Chris is going to say it again. I would not put it past this woman if she didn't have in her mind, and I'm not saying she would ever do it. I don't have no proof that she's wanting to do it. But, Sherry, it would not be beyond me to believe that deep down in the recesses of her heart, and at the very least, people that support her to strap a bomb on themselves and blow the living hell out of the Capitol.
Old MacDonald had a hallucination, E-I-E-I-O. And in his hallucination, he saw some bombs, E-I-E-I-O. With a boom boom here and a boom boom there. Here a boom, there a boom, everywhere a boom boom. Old MacDonald had some psychosis, E-I-E-I-O.
One day. That's what jihadists do. Take that to the bank. I want to ask you this from a constitutional standpoint. What does it take, because some people may not know this, what does it take to remove a congressman or a person from their seat if the House don't do it? Are there means that the public, what has to happen for them to get removed, not just from their chairmanship, but to recall them?
Ilhan Omar is a freshman. She's not really allowed to play on the varsity yet, which means that she's not the chairman of any committees, just a member of some, like foreign relations, which might make sense being as how she's an immigrant from Somalia. She's got a vested interest in how the United States interacts in the wider world. I'm upspeaking again. I don't know what's going on. This has got to stop. Sorry. I'll take a run at answering his dumbass question. Run somebody against her. Beat her at the polls. Oh, but wait, her constituents are happy with her.
What happens?
I'm going to have to research that. I don't know.
Okay. No, that's fine. We need to look into that because I do believe that, it's what happened, with governorships, it's votes. You can go and vote them out. And I know that would never happen in Minnesota's 5th district, but I know there has to be some kind of stipulation in there where they can be voted out. And Sherry's going to kill me. I can almost feel the lightning bolts coming through her eyes. Why didn't you ask me this before the show?
Oh, no, I don't mind. I don't mind at all saying I don't know. I have no problem. I have no ego.
I apologize. No, I know you.
Oh, no, she's got no ego. Got no brain either. Kind of hard to have an ego without a brain. That's Sherry Wassel. Waffle. Because that whole democracy going and voting thing just doesn't work for old MacDonald. No. Old MacDonald had some spirochetes. E-I-E-I-O. No, just don't do that. I'll kill fundraising for the whole night there.
I'm just messing with you.
That's fine, but I did think of an answer. I did just think of an answer. How about?
You didn't give me an answer. You did. We're both looking.
No, I have an answer. I just thought of let's indict her on treason.
Well, that would be a great point. That's a great answer. Hey,
Here's the funny thing. Even if they indict her on treason, which, remember, is defined in the Constitution, if they indicted her for treason, that still wouldn't get her removed from the House. Dumbasses. It takes action by the House. Action like, say, Nancy Pelosi hasn't taken against Steve Cantaloupe's King for being an actual goddamn white supremacist. Apparently, being an actual goddamn white supremacist is not enough to get you removed from the House of Representing. The presumption being that you don't disenfranchise a bunch of knuckle-walking, mouth-breathing rubes who happen to be white supremacists too, and elected him because he's a white supremacist and they want a white supremacist to be their representative. And it's all tax-free. Hallelujah. Subject line, running roughshod. Scott says, I don't really care what someone's headgear, religious or otherwise, consists of. What I'm wondering about is McDonald's dread of someone running roughshod across the land. I've heard the term all my life, and I assume the term is connected to poorly made horseshoes being fitted onto a horse, and I haven't looked it up. Anyway, if I'm correct, how would this dynamic translate to humans? Badly made sneakers, sandals, shoes? Maybe they're barefoot? You're the word knower, Bob. The hell's the guy talking about? I got nothing, Scott. You know why? Because he's crazier in the head than the hog is in the ass. That's why. Meanwhile, Brother Usher Steve says, the lovely irony, these are the people forever telling us they want to get back to the Constitution. Well, it's like that old, that entirely relevant old Onion article, man infuriated by violation of principles of Constitution that exists only in his own head. Earther says, oh, by the way, and thanks to Earther for jumping in last night, too, helping out with the fundraising. G. Hay Joes and Janes, you say you're sorry, but somehow I don't believe you, Bob. I thought Wassel was out of season. Wassel. Well, it is. Unless you're, and I guess a sherry wassail would be a wassail that's made with dry sack. Sometimes the job is a little more difficult than it is other days. Yeah. Wassail. Mm-hmm. Let's check in also with with good old Josh Bernstein. I sort of came out of nowhere, but he's made a business for himself out of suggesting that people take pot shots at cops if they ever decide to seize anyone's guns because they've been charged with a felony or domestic violence or something like that. Right. But now he's worried about population dynamics. And he's all fretting about what might happen if people start moving from blue states down into red states. And it's got him downright wrought.
Pelosi is another one. She said just, I think yesterday or the day before, that their number one strategy is to figure out a way to turn Texas blue.
Which is not a bad strategy, especially in light of the fact that all the cities in Texas are already blue, and the only red spots are out in the hinterlands where the last vestiges of cranky old white supremacist racism still obtains. Yeah. And by the way, the reason his audio sounds, it's not actually his show. He's on the phone on Bill Deagle's Nutramedical Report show, because there's a lot of money in that, and we really shouldn't have given up on Horn Nutraceuticals quite so fast. The orders we had for the sex clams alone probably could have kept the program going for years. Josh is worried about Texas.
Right. And if Texas goes blue, that's the end of the country. It's over. It's over at that point. There's too many electoral votes to be able to come back from. They know it. We know it. We've got to defend Texas. It is the Alamo. It is the political Alamo.
It's the Alamo. That's the metaphor that he chose. Nobody chose it for him. He chose it himself. Because apparently both Josh Bernstein and Bill Deagle, I can just hear the shout at the beginning of and it would be something like, and now here he is, Dill Beagle. How about that liberal scum, everybody? See how it works? Right. But he and do they know how? Do they care? Because I'm pretty sure they don't know what happened at the Alamo. Merca didn't win, and neither did the Texans. Now they won later, but they didn't win at the Alamo. Later reports suggest that David Crockett survived the battle and was later made to beg for his life before being executed for the traitor to the country of Mexico, which is where he was at the time, that he was. But they don't really know that, do they? Because they're maggots. And they're atne ute eitbre if you one I eat me. It's the Alamo. Yeah, sure. And then there's the whole problem of why the Alamo was the Alamo in the first place, because of all those white people who rose up against a Mexican determination to end slavery. See, Mexico ended slavery long before we did. And so the Mexican government didn't take too fondly to the idea of the anti-slavery laws being flouted by the illegal immigrants from the United States. Maybe Mexico should have built the wall. They're just kind of a day late and $1 short. But anyway, back to Bill Deagle and Josh Bernstein.
We've got to make sure that our last stand is in Texas and do not let that state go blue, because if it goes blue, it's over. And I know Kyle Mantila and Right Wing Watch are listening, and they're probably licking their chops trying to figure out a way to help. But there's people like me and you and many others that are going to fortify Texas and make sure that that stays red for the future, because we cannot let that go. And Nancy just, spilled the beans on her strategy. She said that Texas is going to be their number one target. You know, you've got Houston, you've got Austin, you've got San Antonio, you've got Dallas. I mean, these are all areas where these California liberal idiots have moved in for the jobs, by the way, because their bankrupted S-hole state is in such bad damage and crapping on the streets and defecating and urinating on the streets and giving out, heroin needles to people and everything else.
Yeah, hey, kid, you want a heroin needle? No, usually when we go through the drive-through at the bank, you get a little lollipop, but it's California, so we're giving away heroin needles to little kids. Careful how you go sucking on that thing, kid. Right. So the only reason that Dallas and Fort Worth and Texarkana and Amarillo and El Paso and San Antonio and Houston and Austin and are blue is because it's been invaded by liberal scum. You heard that, liberal scum, who came to Texas for the jobs from the Dust Bowl of California, where nobody has a job anymore. So they had to come to Texas, and they brought their liberal pooping on the streets politics with them. Dadgummit. Yeah, absolutely. As Brother Usher Steve says, fortify Texas with 11 vitamins and minerals. And 11 more herbs and spices. Yes. Meanwhile, Ron, in the far frozen north, where it's almost spring because the snow was only falling at 2 inches per hour earlier today, Ron points out, while maggots' lack of understanding about what actually happened at the Alamo is probably the same reason that they won't mention the name of Paul Revere's horse. Wait for it. Brown Beauty. Ron also noting, those heroin needles have never been used for a vaccination. Well, that might make them a little bit safer.
Those people are trying to get away from all that. And so where are they going? They're going to Texas.
With their democratic ideas to Texas. Isn't that weird? They escaped the democratic destruction.
Their disgusting demonic filth with them, Yeah. I swear, I would say this. I almost wish that we could have a thing where you're not allowed to move to another state based on how you vote.
If we could have a thing where. In other words, the thing that Josh Bernstein wants here is for the Constitution to go away and Americans not to have freedom of movement. And I guess he wants to have passport stations at every state line so that maybe you could be rejected and not allowed to bring your street pooping ways from California. Well, they're into dear old Texas, which, well, I can understand the feeling there because, after all, Texas has the worst environmental regulation in the United States. And as a consequence, one good street pooping, it might destroy the whole state. Jesus. Okay, thank you. Cheryl, with a note, going back to roughshod. Shod with horseshoes having projecting nails or points. And Scott in San Diego took it upon himself to be the ad hoc research department and declared that for himself. So now we know that. Although I have a feeling, Republicans being all authoritarian and hung up and latent and closeted and stuff, they probably had something involving chaps in mind instead. But, right. Steve in New York, I think, being a tad ironic. I just can't figure out why people call these nutballs fascists. Except for the part, where they are.
I know that sounds extreme, but I'm so tired of having good red states be infiltrated by scum from the blue states and changing the dynamics and the voting patterns of these states. I mean, look at Colorado, for instance. Colorado was a bright red state. Arizona is now a pink state. It's not even bright red anymore. Even Texas is getting a little pink. Georgia's getting a little pink. Why? Because these liberals, and I'll say it, are moving into these states. Why? Because they've bankrupted their blue states, and they've got nowhere else to go. So if they want to make a living and support themselves and their families, they have to go to the red states. But the problem is they're bringing all of the crap that they just left and destroyed with them. That kind of
now, hold on a minute. On the one hand, they're bringing the crap, but in the same sentence, he says they left it. Yeah, I'm confused. But isn't it fascinating that the red states are the good ones, and it's the bankrupt blue states that are, and yet, oddly enough, it's all those bankrupt blue states that make it possible for Texas and Alabama and the Confederacy and whatever, such as the Iraq, to, build roads and have states. Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, none of these states could survive on their own without the hard work and dedication of taxpayers in blue states. Because the red states are layabout states. Shitty wages, crummy government, theocracy, bought and paid for legislatures. And did you notice that the disgusting filth is also disgusting demonic filth? I've never been around demon poo, but I can imagine it's probably not pleasant. Odd that I'm trying to figure out how they have been. Roughshod, you say? Offers Ron in Raleigh. Yeah, maybe the lines from Blazing Saddles is what he means. I got it. You do? We'll work up a number 6 on them. Number 6? I'm afraid I'm not familiar with that one. Well, that's where we go a-riding into town, a-wompin' and a-wompin' every living thing that moves within an inch of its life. Except the women folk, of course. You spare the women? No, we rape the shit out of them at the number 6 dance later on. Marvelous. Roughshod. Meanwhile, Earther with a complicated question. Bankrupt California? You mean the California that has the surplus budget and the fifth largest economy in the world? Pooping on the streets seems like a poverty issue, so I'm guessing the street pooping is going to be in the Confederate States on gravel roads. Damn communist asphalt. Did Jesus ever ride on asphalt? No. Well, and that's why Alabama's having them problems that I talked about a couple of nights ago, where they got a little civil war going on inside the Republican Party, people not wanting to pay that extra 10 cents a gallon on the gasolines. Shh. Don't tell Alabamians. But if you don't want to pay the gasoline tax, you could always get an electric vehicle. Yeah, right. Possibly. Could be. So, that's... They really do have a hang-up with California. Not just Josh Bernstein, but our buddy Chris McDonald from earlier. He doesn't like California, and he doesn't like the people that California sends to Washington to represent them.
They're trying to, again, change the narrative from one of Russia collusion to one that his businesses are dirty. And one of the leading voices that's doing...
Hold on. Por qué no los dos? Two things can be true at the same time. He can be a Russia colluding motherfucker and a dirty, rotten, cheating, scheming, scamming con artist. Both of these things can be true. I don't understand the need for exclusivity that happens in the minds of these good, God-fearing, upstanding, Bible-believing, Christ-centered, evangelical, fundamentalist, homosexual Christians.
Dad is Adam Schiff. And he's out there. He even said this 2 days ago. It was a Breitbart story. He was on the talk shows this weekend, and he said there's absolutely 1,000% surety that Donald Trump colluded with Russians. And, Sherry, this is the most dirtiest congressman in freaking Congress, short of Nancy Pelosi. I mean, I understand. I'm not sure of the
most dirtiest. That there is some highfalutin broadcast talking there. Most dirtiest.
Yes, I don't know if you know this or not. Is he related to Soros? Isn't his wife or somebody's girlfriend or somebody that knows him?
Oh, it's the Soros anti-Semitic dog whistle. Well, of course, because after all, Chris McDonald is a Christian.
He's got some kind of tie to Soros or Pelosi one. I don't know, but this is a crooked SOB. And when he talks...
Man of God, remember, he's a preacher. Crooked SOB. That's what he... Right.
Folks, I swear I just want to vomit. I do. He reminds me of Stilwell, the other guy, the California guy that's out there too. Same way. They're always, anything they say is regurgitating and detestable. Now, you asked the question, where's the House probe into him? He's dirty. I've heard rumors that he's not only dirty, but he's a pedophile. And he's not only a pedophile, I've heard that he settled a case with a minor or somebody, a sexual abuse thing, many years back, and that's been sort of shoved under the rug. And again, I'm not trying to impugn character. I'm not trying to accuse him of anything, but...
Except for the fact that you just did, you hypocritical prick. You little hypocritical prick.
Look, it would surprise me if that's true, because he's creepy as hell. And, you know, I don't like him. So I'm just being very honest. So Right Wing Watch, write that up, that Chris McDonald is accusing Adam Schiff of being a pedophile because I don't like him. I can see the headline right now, right across Right Wing Watch's headline. It's McDonald. Just spell the name right.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, Right Wing Watch obliged. Chris McDonald, I'm accusing Adam Schiff of being a pedophile because I don't like him. They quoted him because that's what he said for him to do. Oh, it's a beautiful thing, you know. It's just beautiful. Meanwhile, Steve, Brother Usher Steve says, subject line, Josh Bernstein. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I suspect that Mr. Bernstein is Jewish. What say ye, Rick Wiles? Synagogue of Satan. I don't think you get to do that over unless you've, like, converted or become a converso or one of those sort of inquisitional terms. Subject line, cool, from Darlene in Connecticut. That dipshit you're playing sounds like he's scared to me. 666, libtards unite! Yeah, we need to go to Texas and show them what some real street pooping's about. You know, just dine on nothing but all brand for about 5 solid days. And, yeah, just walk right in there in a little rural Texas red town and, yeah, we're from California. Take that. Mm-hmm. Scott, meanwhile, says, now, wait just a California minute, Bob. In June, I will have been living in California for 19 years. Not once have I witnessed a case of sidewalk shitting. And when it comes to right down to it, we don't even allow dogs to do it. And if they do, there are dispensers with free plastic bags so a responsible dog owner can clean up after his or her pooch. Well, that's communism, Scott. To hear this clown tell it, the Lone Star State is a lush resort in a sea of some liberal ocean of hellishness. Huh? Not even close. I lived in Texas 18 months in the early 90s, Corpus Christi to be exact, and if someone offered me a deluxe home in Texas for free with taxes on it paid up for the rest of my life, I'd pass on the offer. Jimmy in the Great Northwest, meanwhile, asking, how many evangelicals does it take to screw up a Wednesday? Well, only one. But they may not necessarily screw up. Sometimes they screw down. Or sometimes they screw sideways. Yeah. Busy evening. And I've been remiss in my duties of late. I think we need to cover, because mention was made of it on a previous program, I think we need I think we need to give a little bit of coverage to Tucker Carlson, who is at present hemorrhaging advertisers. It started, well, Media Matters went and found, and I don't even understand the setup on this. But back a few years ago, Tucker Carlson, in a desperate attempt to try to elevate his visibility, I guess, I think it was kind of between his Crossfire gig and whatever came after that, he would, from time to time, between 2006 and 2011, for 1 hour a week, call in to a radio program delivered by a person who calls himself Bubba the Love Sponge. And Bubba the Love Sponge achieved some degree of popularity. He was basically trying to bogart the same sort of outrageous shtick that Howard Stern did, but which Howard brought some actual brains to it. Nobody's ever going to accuse Bubba the Love Sponge of that. Bubba the Love Sponge is also the guy who got sued by the guy whose name is not really Hulk Hogan over a sex tape of, I guess, Bubba the Love Sponge stooping Hulk Hogan's wife. And Gawker got hold of the tape, published it, and then Hulk Hogan sued and had his suit financed by I guess a self-hating gay man, some sort of tech gajillionaire freak from Silicon Valley, who managed to suppress freedom of the press via the lawsuit. So that's Bubba the Love Sponge, in brief. Well, Tucker Carlson would go on his show for about an hour a week, and he would say outrageous things. Think of it as a low-rent version of Donald Trump calling Howard Stern and talking about how the 90s were his sexual Vietnam. So the first thing that bubbled to the surface was Tucker Carlson explaining to Bubba the Love Sponge about how unfair it was what had happened to a guy named Warren Jeffs, who is presently doing life in prison, I think, for having married little girls off to full-grown men in the fundamentalist, traditionalist Mormon church cult that he more or less operated. Warning, this is disgusting.
Actually, he's not in prison for that. Warren Jeffs didn't marry underage girls.
No, he's in prison for facilitation of child rape.
Whatever the hell that means.
That means
he's in prison because he's weird and unpopular, and he has a different lifestyle that other people find creepy.
No, he's an accessory to the rape of children. That is a felony, and a serious one at that.
What do you mean an accessory? He's like got some weird religious cult where he thinks it's okay to, marry underage girls, but he didn't do it. Why wouldn't the guy who actually did it, who had sex with an underage girl, he should be the one who's doing life? The rapist in this case has made a lifelong commitment to live and take care of the person. So it is a little different. I mean, let's just be honest about it.
No, really. This is one of the great right-wing thinkers of our era.
Not accused of touching anybody. He is accused of facilitating a marriage between a 16-year-old girl and a 27-year-old man. That's the accusation. That's what they're calling felony rape.
But in our state,
that's bullshit. I'm sorry. Now, this guy may be a total creep, maybe a child rapist. I'm just telling you that arranging a marriage between a 16-year-old and a 27-year-old is not the same as pulling a stranger off the street and raping her. That's bullshit.
But you know what? In my brief experience, what gets women going is arguing with them.
Really?
Yeah.
Brad, I never use that.
It's true. You debate politics with a woman and just go, just full-blown out there, especially feminism. If you're talking to a feminist and she's giving you, men really need to be more sensitive and this. Actually, men don't need to be more sensitive. You just need to be quiet and kind of do what you're told.
And lighten up a little bit, bitch.
They love it.
Alexis Stewart, we run into her all the time.
She seems
Cunt.
awful.
Yeah, she is awful.
They're very cunty.
She seems extremely.
Sorry about that.
I like to hear that word out of. Oh yeah, I stepped over him. She seems what? Now go ahead.
This is sickening. But this too, not just what he does when he cuddles up and snuggles with white supremacists on Fox News TV, Radio Rwanda, but what's going on in this clip. This is professional broadcasting in the 21st century.
She just does seem a little cunty. Yeah, I mean, you said it. I'm just agreeing with you. I don't use that.
This guy's got daughters. He's got a daughter who looks to be about the same age as, say, the little girl that he says should be perfectly happy that she was married off to her rapist. No, really. Yeah.
Right. I'd love for Tucker Carlson tonight on MSNBC, a girl that comes across kind of cunty.
Well, she does. I mean, I heard her. Now I'm a Brent fan, so okay, I'm stating my bias right out front here. But I heard her on with him, and I just wanted to give her the spanking she so desperately
I actually watched.
When she's laying her head in your bed at night, you know who the hell's in her bedroom and what they're doing. Nobody, just her. Well, when she's in a dormitory-type setting and these little girls start experimenting around, next thing you know, you got a lesbian on your hands.
I don't think that's likely.
Next thing you know, Brad, what's going on in the Combe dormitory? Nothing. I don't got a PSP to play. I ain't got nothing going on. I ain't got my mom and dad here to tell me that they love me and check me and tuck me in bed. So here's Trixie, and she wants to explore my body a little bit. So, hey, let's go crazy. Wow.
That if it weren't my daughter,
that's one theory.
That.
Well, I mean, it's
I just can't, and Manson, I just think that's pretty unlikely.
Can you tell him, as outlandish as that is, how old is your daughter?
14.
Well, I love women, but they're extremely primitive. They're basic. They're not that hard to understand.
You can kind of understand why he's so popular on Fox. You can understand why he thinks the world and all of a man who's been credibly accused with north of 15, 20 sexual assaults. A guy who, by the way, was present at parties where young girls were promised modeling contracts by Jeffrey Epstein. Here's just a piece of a pleading. Plaintiff in Jeffrey Epstein and Trump case was enticed by a modeling career. Plaintiff was enticed by promises of money and a modeling career to attend a series of parties with other similarly situated minor females held at a New York City residence that was being used by defendant Jeffrey Epstein. At least 4 of the parties were attended by defendant Trump. Yeah. I don't get this. I don't understand how this is professional broadcasting. I don't know how we got from Edward R. Murrow Well, yeah, I do, and we'll probably have a broader discussion on that topic, as a matter of fact. How we got from Edward R. Murrow to this. Edward R. Murrow through John Chancellor, Chet Huntley, David Brinkley, Walter Cronkite, Tucker Carlson, Bubba the Love Sponge. How is this? I know, free market capitalism. How is there a market for this? Obviously, it's taking place on Sirius XM because they're throwing around words that would get you, well, find so deep into the ground that your head would pop out in China. But even so, I mean, yes, I use it's the internet, so you know what? I could use that word. I find it repulsive to do so, however. Would this program be ever so much more popular if only I was throwing around some of those words? I mean, I still get occasional complaints about using the word fuck. Or the profusion of my goddamage. Steve in New York says, I'll be honest about it. I will punch that fucker in the face if I ever see him. So in preparation for that, I'd like to find a few criminal lawyers licensed in New York. No jokes here. And he admits in this that his daughter's 14 years old. Otherwise known as marrying age to a sick freak like Warren Jeffs. But this is by no means all of it. Oh, hell no. Like I said, it went on for years. And he showed up on the Bubba the Love Sponge program. For instance, with this little exchange. And remember, Tucker was on MSNBC at the time.
Have you ever spent time in Holland, though?
No, I've never been there. I've been a lot of places in the world, but never been to Holland.
I could do the show from Vancouver.
Oh, yeah.
They got a lot of hot whores up there.
Vancouver is packed, and I mean literally packed with Canadians. They're everywhere.
Yeah, but they love to smoke weed, and they have hot whores there.
Yeah, hot whores and smoking weed, man.
But they don't do it in a cool, fun way. That's the problem with Canadians. No matter what they're doing, it always makes it seem sort of boring.
MSNBC's very own Tucker Carlson. Tuck, do you like coming on with us? Because I like you. I mean, I'm not trying to fag out on you or nothing, but I like you.
Well, I like you, too. And I mean that. You always say I mean that in a non-fag way, but I actually mean it in a completely faggot way.
I wish I knew how to quit you, Tuck.
I wish I knew how to quit you, Tuck. Oh, hey, Tuck, you got to try to find that news that you got to, because I'm gonna watch Tuck tonight, Brennan. If he uses that soundbite of George W. Bush saying, "I don't know where the oil in the pipeline goes."
I don't know where it
got
goes.
it written down right here. That means excellent.
If you play that means you're thinking about us. Okay.
When I ever find my way out of Jersey City, I am literally right now. I'm next to 2 abandoned warehouses on some side street in Jersey City.
Tony's taking down some bikers that got a couple bottles of wine. Did you see that, Brett?
Yeah, watch out for Paulie Walnuts.
Watch out for the Italian festival because the rides aren't so safe this year.
By the way, did anybody apart from me think that the scene where he the fireman rides up on his Harley, rescues the girl in the house, and then starts kissing the fat dude? Was that?
That's
That
unbelievable.
has a ring of bullshit to it.
Yeah, a big ring of bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, how many small-town fireman hero Harley riders are gay?
And like the whole town he's in is gay.
And not only that, but, how many small-town Harley riders, that are really good guys in America just got fucking clowned out now that aren't fags.
Does it ever occur to you that these are people whose emotional development stopped somewhere around age, 11? Did Tucker Carlson go home at night and his spouse looked at him and said, "Well, dear, what did you do today to keep us in the lifestyle to which we've become accustomed?" "Well, I went on Bubba the Love Sponge and hurled around some vicious homophobic epithets, and then there was that day that I called you a... What, dear? Well, you can say it. I'll still love you. Well, I called you a see you next Tuesday. You bastard! But for pure, just plain unadult, and what we've got so far is gross. It's revolting. And I'm sad to admit that Brother Deacon Asa tells me, yes, your program would be more popular if you did that sort of thing. If you threw words around like that. But it wouldn't facilitate the kind of conversations that we like, would it? Brother Deacon Asa says, Jesus Christ, these fucking people are nasty. Also, as a Vancouverite, I can tell you that our sex workers are not that hot. But apparently, the purpose of showing up on that program, I don't know, was he paid for the appearance? Did MSNBC know? Because remember, they threw Keith Olbermann off the air over a campaign contribution, the likes of which Joe Scarborough had been making the whole time, too. Joe Scarborough did not, however, get bounced off the air. So, you remember the Miss Teen USA contestant from South Carolina, right? The Iraq and such as, because they don't have maps. Well, nothing says professional broadcasting quite like speculating about little girls having sex does. And if people are puking in garbage cans at this point in time, I apologize, but this actually is kind of a big story because it lets you know, it gives us a window into just how foul, just how vulgar, just how disgusting, how utterly revolting the people over at Fox News TV Radio Rwanda really are and what they will put up with. I mean, you got that Chris McDonald creep, and he's blathering on about how Ilhan Omar wants to blow up the Capitol. But not as many people hear that as hear Jeanine Pirro. And we had the clip from her last night talking about what? Yes, Ilhan Omar wants to blow up the Capitol. Because Muslim. Because that's right. Well, she's shedding a few advertisers, but here's the trick with that. Let's say your Nerd Wallet. They recently dumped Jeanine Pirro. We won't be advertising on her program. We've ordered the ads to stop, and we won't advertise anymore. And all they do is move the Nerd Wallet ads over to a different day part. Well, see, we're not advertising with Tucker Carlson anymore. Well, no, but it's still going into the same big cesspit of money. So with an understanding that this is going to get even more disgusting, and that the hockey puck is almost a requirement at this point. And on the idea that you didn't realize that what you just heard had something even worse following it, yeah, it does. This is from Now This.
Miss Teen USA, Miss Teen South Carolina.
I got to be honest. I mean, I thought she was kind of appealing.
I thought she was hot.
You're a real fucking sicko. What's South Carolina? It's probably 16 in South Carolina.
She'd probably be a pretty good wife.
Right. The professional broadcasters are speculating on making a child bride of the young woman who had a horrifying moment on stage that the world is, still laughing at. She'd probably make a good wife. By the way, as the folks at Now This point out, she did. She contemplated suicide after that disastrous appearance.
What's South Carolina rule? It's probably 16 in South Carolina.
She'd probably be a pretty good wife.
Now, somebody said she may be 18 now.
Oh, yeah, she definitely looks 18.
Yeah,
Don't you think, if you had a wife that dumb, would it be good or bad?
Good.
Did you hear the audio of her answer?
Did I hear it? Yeah. Well, we gave it prominent play in the show yesterday. that made my day. Now, Mario, who was hosting it, whom I know is a pretty good guy, what do you think the odds are that he tied into that after the show?
I'd say 85%.
I would say at least 90.
Now, hold on. Let me ask you a question. How old's Mario?
He was on Saved by the Bell years
Mario,
ago. He's got to be like 38 now.
I think he's 3 years younger than I am, so he's 35.
You're saying now that maybe Mario might have plowed that?
Oh,
Oh, my God, of course. Are you kidding?
How tough would it be? All you got to do is, hey, I have a map of the United States on my penis. Would you like to check it out?
Exactly. She's so dumb. She's vulnerable. She's like a wounded gazelle.
She's
separated from the herd.
So she's ripe for the taking.
You think?
She's like a wounded gazelle. She's separated from the herd. She's ripe for the taking. You know what? This was if this was a conversation taking place about, say, 3,500 years ago, 4,000 years ago, when women were deemed to really not be real human beings, but rather the property of some man, this is the kind of conversation they had. And you kind of got to wonder about Mario Lopez now that this is out there. If he didn't know about it before and he's just now learning about it, the discovery rule might make it actionable. Because while you've got elevated standards like New York Times versus Sullivan and Hustler versus Falwell, this is a straight up allegation of felonious conduct. But Tucker Carlson doesn't much believe in concepts like rape.
Mario may have plowed that.
Oh my God, are you kidding? Yes.
Well, she was 17. Couldn't that be a problem? Couldn't that be a problem legally if Mario f***ed it?
No. Kidding?
There's some weird.
He's like James Brown. He gets a pass.
Wow, Mark.
The normal laws
Tucker
that
is
kind
dark.
of thing don't apply to him.
Tucker is dark.
By the way, just in case you're wondering, guess who owned Miss Teen USA at the time this conversation is taking place? Yeah, Donald Trump. Donald Trump, who bragged about having access to the entirety of the pageant, and he could just walk in and out of dressing rooms because he owned it. Yeah. He bragged about it.
Is that I'll go backstage before a show, and I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. I'm inspecting. I want to make sure that
like
everything is good.
You're there.
Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? They're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible-looking women.
Mm-hmm. Because the entire purpose of the whole thing was to sexualize a bunch of girls who were maybe 16, 17, 18 at most, maybe 19, because it was Miss Teen USA. This is disgusting. Now, how did Tucker Carlson respond? Media Matters caught me saying something naughty on a radio show more than a decade ago. Rather than express the usual ritual contrition, how about this? I'm on television every weeknight live for an hour. If you want to know what I think, you can watch. Anyone who disagrees with my views is welcome to come on and explain why. And all of this just to lead up to a simple assertion. I'm going to the phones in a minute. Devin pointing out, we don't need a window. They left the fucking barn doors open. I've talked a little bit about this from time to time. We tend to get enamored, you know, we're sunk way deep in the concept of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so we watch the never Trump Republicans, of whom there is a steady parade on various and sundry cable outlets and some broadcast outlets. There are right-wing pundits who have made a career, who have catapulted to a sort of stardom from being a never Trump Republican. But here's the thing. At base, they're still Republicans. Case in point. A guy that you can't turn on, you can hardly turn on the program on MSNBC that runs from 9 to 10 without seeing this fucker, Bret Stephens. Ooh, Bret Stephens won a Pulitzer Prize at the Wall Street Journal opinion page. And so, and he won it writing shitty, sleazy, stupid things like there's no such thing as a campus rape epidemic. And climate change is not an existential crisis. And he's an ever-Trump Republican, and he's all over the place. Well, he tweeted today an article by David French from a white supremacist journal called the National Review. Quoting David, he says, David French, astute as usual, our nation cannot maintain its culture of free speech if we continue to reward those who seek to destroy careers rather than rebut ideas. So I guess what he's saying is that America owes Tucker Carlson a fucking career. America owes Tucker Carlson the lifestyle to which he has become accustomed. No matter what hateful or repugnant things Tucker Carlson says, David French at the National Review, cited approvingly by Bret Stephens, the never-Trumper, well, all we can do is rebut his ideas and say that they're bad statements. But, no, because IOKIYAR and because Wingnut Welfare, Tucker Carlson deserves to be a millionaire because Tucker Carlson. And I mention this because I want to believe, understanding as I do, how dangerous that damn word is. I want to believe that we're going to reach a place in our country where we can begin to cleanse this country of maggotism. We're gonna run these bastards out of office, and we're going to start making government work for the people, not for the billionaires and for the pussy grabbers and for the statutory rapists. Boy, I bet you Tucker Carlson would get his fists all balled up and ready to go and take a swing at somebody if somebody talked about his 16-year-old daughter that way. But if it's somebody else's 16-year-old daughter, well, she's fair game for Tucker Carlson. And David French says that we have to rebut his ideas, not destroy his career. Where in the Constitution or any law of the United States of America does it say that anybody owes a goddamn thing to Tucker Carlson except for maybe people who sign and enter into contractual agreements with him? Hint, there's nowhere that says that. But this is the height and the breadth of the privilege that attaches itself to the right wing. Great heavenly days. And the only tool we have, if we would like to have a better country than that, is economics. Because the government more or less can't go in and suppress that speech, no matter how hateful and vulgar and filthy and perverted and sick and disgusting it is. Oddly enough, there are countries that would gladly throw that fucker off the air for saying that. And you know what's interesting? They're not countries that are wanting in freedom. They're countries that recognize that that kind of speech, that kind of behavior, has a coarsening effect and a toxic effect and a poisonous effect on any attempt to be a decent society. But not us. And so the only hope is to make it unbearable for Fox to continue to give Tucker Carlson a platform. And the only way it becomes unbearable is if it becomes a matter of economic agony. But you see, Tucker Carlson is Fox's direct emissary to white supremacy. One example. He has been referred to as the favorite personality of the Daily Stormer. One outfit says, Heil Tucker. It's out there for the finding. David Duke didn't waste any time, former Grand Wizard of the Klan. He declared that the Jews went out and dug up this filthy audio. No explanation from former Grand Wizard David Duke as to how the Jews managed to make Tucker Carlson say that. But, yeah. And, of course, David Duke has a radio show of his own. Yeah. Note coming from Dave from Taliban, Indiana. Damn it, Bob, I have to increase my hockey puck budget. Give a guy a break. I'm on a fixed income. Has Tucker Carlson lost his bow tie? Yes. And this bubble of, by the way, is he any relation to Brother Love of the WWF? No. I mean, that's the height of the right-wing thought. By the way, when I was doing my research into D.C. Stevenson, the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan in the 20s in Indiana, I had the misfortune of having to look at some of their printed propaganda where they refer to themselves as real Americans. And I keep hearing this crap from the right wing today. There's no difference between them and those hooded dumb shits in the 20s. Your buddy Dave. No, it's all just rebranding. Every time one brand becomes goes into disfavor, they rebrand it as something else. The Klan, the John Birch Society, Reagan Republicans, the Teabaggers, the maggots. It's all in the family. over the course of generations, there is a hateful, hate-filled contingent in this country. And apparently it's very, very good business to play to them. So that's where we are. I felt like we needed to get that, we needed to cover that topic. Lady B with a note. Bob, during the 90s, while I was trapped oozing feminine smarm promoting songs by Jim Brickman and Celine Dion, this shock jock bullshit was what captured the attention of most males in the 18 to 24 and 25 to 45 demographics. Guys loved shit like Bubba the Love Sponge and Michael Savage in the 90s. I don't want to sound like that bitch, but I've always maintained that allowing that high school frat boy bullshit to permeate the airwaves was a big mistake. As usual, a lot of Americans brushed it off at the time as a harmless way to stick it to the feminazi-filled, overly PC culture. I thought it was trash. And we wonder why we have a hard time encouraging civil discourse in this country. But then again, I was introducing mediocre pop music to the world. Mea culpa. But I did like Celine Dion. We'll let the Celine Dion slide. So, tell me your thoughts. Lines are open, 304-574-8178. Skype to Skype, Bob Kincaid Horn. Toll free, 844-843-4676. We're about halfway through the program. And God knows there's plenty more besides all of this. But I had not gone into it. And I actually did some soul searching before I ran the audio. And so, if you're put off by it, I apologize. I should probably just outright apologize for playing it. But when it's something like this, please understand, it's not for the sake of sensationalism. It is for the sake of, because I don't think it carries the same weight when you say Tucker Carlson made inappropriate remarks, blah, blah, blah. We need to know what Tucker Carlson said. We need to know how Tucker Carlson talked about other people's daughters. Okay? Because otherwise it just sort of gets lost in the static. And I'm just, I wish I knew what the remedy was. Maybe there shouldn't be a remedy. Maybe we should just be as filthy as we want to be. Maybe I should do every program here as though I was operating under the watchful ear of the FCC and never let another F-bomb fly. Are there any answers? Irish Dave says, wait just a gall-darn minute. Father Tucker got money for Irving Scooter Libby, a well-known Jew. Libby was born to an affluent Jewish family in New Haven, Connecticut. His late father, Irving Lewis Leibovitz, was an investment banker. Oh, wait, they changed the family surname, sort of like Abe Lincoln, so as not to be so easily found out, LOL. Yeah. Brother Usher Steve says, as a member of the Horn, and that word, the one with the F and the T, the F at the front and the T in the end, and the O and the A and the two G's in the middle. As a member of the Horn Caucus, no objections here, even though I won't kid you, it made me cringe and wince. Well, thank you for that. Thank you. Let's run over to the phones. Let's check in with Tracy. Hey, Tracy.
Hey, how you doing?
I feel like I need to shower and bleach now.
Oh.
That ended quickly. I take it Tracy was needed elsewhere. So, and the thing is, 2006 to 2011, this stuff's just dripping out. Drip, 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 drip. And Tucker Carlson feels like he doesn't, he doesn't need to apologize. And among other things, well, he kind of lost his mind. Ooh, I keep trying to turn the ringer off on that. For some reason or another, it doesn't work. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Bob, how you doing? I'll be quick today because I was on for a long time the other day. But I sent you a little news thing. I think it was from The Hill. I emailed it earlier, having to do with the morning, your dirty little morning habit. A couple of years ago, praising Tucker Carlson's performance on Fox. And as memory serves me, and sometimes it doesn't serve me real well, it seems to me that in the early 2000s, Tucker Carlson had a slot on MSNBC.
He did, and he did, and before that, see, he was the one on air when Jerry Seinfeld went on Crossfire and just killed the program.
Oh no, Jon Stewart.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah, Tucker Carlson was there when Jon Stewart went on and just killed the program. Why don't y'all start by not being such dicks? I think was what he said. You there, Scott? Okay. Skype is being a real pain in the ass here. I don't know where Scott went.
I'm here.
Ah, you're there now. Okay.
Okay. I don't know. I was on mute and I unmuted. Maybe.
No, the connection fell apart, and I don't know why. Probably because Frontier sucks. I don't know. Maybe it's your connection falling apart, Scott. Yeah, this is some of that painfully dead air.
Hello.
Yeah, we're back. Third time's the charm. You got to be kidding me. We get to hello and everything falls apart?
Hello, hello.
Yeah, hello.
All right, I'm
gone again. You want to try with a real phone, Scott? Okay, so maybe we'll try with a real phone. Devin says no penicillin can fix that drip. Ew. Yeah, that's going to be a nightmare. All right, let's go over to the stress line and see if it's working. Okay, Scott, try again.
Okay, I'm on the stress line.
Yes, you are.
Can you hear me now?
I certainly do.
Good. All right. For latecomers to the program and those adjusting their sets at home.
Fifth time's charm.
Okay. We were talking about Tucker Carlson having been on MSNBC in the early 2000s, and his sidekick was Willie Geist.
Now, see, I was kind of leading. Yes.
Yeah, who was one of the sidekicks on Your Dirty Morning Habit.
Right.
And see, here's the deal. I used to love Bill Geist, who was on CBS this morning, or CBS Sunday morning, correspondent with offbeat stories and stuff, who was Willie's father, Bill Geist, who has gone ill. I think he has Parkinson's disease, and I think he's still with us. But he was a hell of a reporter.
I remember him, yeah.
But Willie did not get that gene. But anyway, I had sent you an article from 2017 where Morning Joe, the headline is Morning Joe praises Tucker Carlson's performance on Fox News, so-called news. Okay? And I'm thinking, these people, Bob, these people, and those clips from Bubba the Love Sponge did not offend me in the sense that, I mean, yeah, they were offensive, but I was not offended because people got to know, as Nixon said, whether their presidents are crooked, people got to know the diminishment, as I was saying the other day, of the discourse, or what passes for discourse in this country today. And if you look at the Wikipedia entry for Bubba the Love Sponge, and I forget who let you know about this, when he was on terrestrial radio, I think in Tampa, Florida, he was number one in the market.
Yes.
For 18 to 20-something or 30.
There was, and you know, I have tangential when I was on terrestrial radio in America's fifth smallest radio market, the program director there was all excited because he was thinking he was going to bring in the syndicated Bubba the Love Sponge show for the hot hits FM station in the conglomerate there.
Well, there you go. There you go. And this was in the 90s. And he was.
Well, that was the early aughts.
Well, when he was in Tampa, and I think he's been all over the place, and he's not an old guy. He's maybe younger than you, or right at your age, maybe. He was all the time getting fined by the FCC, as Howard Stern used to get fined by the FCC, for continually going over the line. And there used to be a line, Bob. You know that. I know that. And it's just craziness. The things have gotten to be as they are. And you say, well, free market, it must appeal to somebody, otherwise the person wouldn't be succeeding. Well, what did H.L. Mencken say?
You'll never go broke underestimating the
intelligence of the American public.
Right.
And he said that, I think, in the 20s. You know? So I don't know. It just pisses me off. It upsets me that things have deteriorated to the point that they have.
Well, this was an industry that you loved being part of.
Well, yeah, and I saw it coming, Bob, when my last radio work was in 1998, when I was in Cincinnati doing afternoon drive on a little AM jazz station, a commercial station, one of the last commercial jazz stations in the country, now owned by some Catholic organization, okay? And I saw it coming. That was just into the first bits of deregulation
and consolidation and mega corporate ownership, your Clear Channel, your J-Core, which I think Clear Channel sprung from, and Clear Channel is now iHeart, like they're fooling anybody, and owning 1,200 band stations. And it's just crazy that a limited resource, that is to say the airwaves, can be so dominated and consolidated and effed up to a fare-thee-well.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound like some sort of prude because, for instance, European countries, Australia, Japan, they are much less prudish about, for instance, nudity or bad language.
Yeah.
But this transcends nudity or bad language. This is, I mean, that last clip there was Tucker Carlson talking about wanting to rape because statutory rape is, it doesn't take consent into account because the legal presumption is that a child cannot consent as a matter of law. That last clip was Tucker Carlson actually, and he's a conservative, and he has conservative values. And he's talking about wanting to rape a little girl.
Do you remember the first Jurassic Park movie?
I do.
There's a line in that uttered by Jeff Goldblum. I forget what his role was in the film, whether he was a reporter or a scientist or what. But the film deals with taking the DNA, the genetic structure of a dinosaur found in amber or something, and mixing it, blending it with a modern-day creature, the result being living, breathing, functioning dinosaurs, in the modern day on an island, which was intended to be a tourist attraction. And Jeff Goldblum says something along the lines of, just because we can do it doesn't mean we should. And let's shift that mindset over to radio and television, even cable, and all, that does fall under different rules, but there are rules. Even basic cable, just because we can say it doesn't mean we should. In old-fashioned cars, there used to be a device under the hood called a governor, which would keep you from going over a certain speed in the car. And why was it there? I don't know. Maybe to conserve fuel, or perhaps maybe to as a governing thing over the actions of irresponsible, stupid, drunk drivers. But we've lost our governor in the sense of this mechanical thing that I'm talking about. And just because we can doesn't mean we should. And that's my.
But in the world of marketing, if you take as given my analysis of profit-driven broadcasting, well, the purpose of any given program is not to deliver information to a listener or a viewer. The purpose of any given program is to deliver that listener or viewer into the tender mercies of an advertiser.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why there's 500 channels on cable, and yet you find yourself going, Jesus Christ, there's nothing on.
Well, back in the late 50s, speaking to the National Association of Radio and TV News Directors, and you mentioned his name earlier today, the late, great Edward R. Murrow, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm close, told the assembled gathering of radio and television news directors in the late 50s, television, and you can put radio under this definition, but what he said was television, if it does not educate, enlighten, illuminate, and inform, It is nothing more than lights and wires in a box. And that was in the late 50s. So he saw it coming. And he should know. One of his programs, I see it now, I think was the documentary program that he did with Fred Friendly on the CBS television network, was cut back to a half hour every third week or something, or was put into the Sunday afternoon ghetto, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday afternoon when nobody was watching, to make way for shows like the $64,000 question, the quiz show. And I love quiz shows, always have. But Murrow saw it coming. The need for low IQ mass audience that advertisers would pay premium bucks to reach with their beauty products or their cookware or whatever the hell it was. A quality, informative, decent program was being shunted aside so that the advertisers could reach the lowest common denominator. And
because that show was a lot cheaper to produce than something that had real no kidding content in it. Agreed? Oh, hold on. You got dropped. Stand by. I gotta get the Bluetooth back. Their Bluetooth going again. It's probably the Russians. Yeah, all right, you're back. Well, why aren't you back? Hold on. This is one of those nights. All righty, there, Scott.
Yes, I'm here. Boy,
okay.
What a day it is. What a day. The lowest common denominator in the last 60 years has gotten so low, a high jump would consist of jumping over a matchbook laying flat on the table. Okay?
Yeah. There are little signposts along this road too. One of them was the rise of so-called reality television. Those things are it's a hell of a lot cheaper to send a camera crew into a goddamn pawn shop in Las Vegas than it is to actually hire actors, write stories, hire all the people that have to, it's like our conversations with my buddy Dan, hire people to do props and set dressing and best boy electrics and have a set and a sound stage or a live studio audience. Well, the ROI on that is a lot lower than it is on putting a camera in a canoe with some assholes who've made a fortune selling duck calls.
Well, and wasn't there a poll taken several years back, a number of years back, where they polled the American public, a broad representation of the American public, and more people, according to the poll, were able to name the finalists in like American Idol or Who's Got Talent or whatever the crazy
Who Wants to Marry a Millionaire's Nose, yes.
Yeah, they could mention with more accuracy the finalists on these stupid so-called reality shows than they could name their 2 senators and representatives or the names of the Supreme Court justices. That's where we are, Bob, in this country. And this is no newsflash to you. You know this. One more thing, and then you obviously were talking about the big scandal. I forget what the catchy name for it is, but the college admissions scandal.
Yeah.
Turns out we did not miss being in the news here in California. While it is true there is very little, if any, shitting on sidewalks in California. There are rich people who try to buy their kids' way into good colleges. Our own University of California system was caught up in this, as was SDSU, San Diego State University, who owns and operates the local PBS TV and FM station, I might add. But one of the people caught up in it is a woman named Elizabeth Kimmel, who until a couple of years ago owned the CBS affiliate for TV and the AM and FM combo under the corporate name Midwest Television. They had owned the combo TV, radio, or TV, AM, and FM since the early 60s, the early 60s, and sold it to an outfit called Tenga, Tenga, about whom I know next to nothing. But anyway, she was allegedly caught up in this college admissions scandal. Now, here's a woman. You know, do you know what? San Diego is a major market. I don't know how big we are.
Yeah, nobody really thinks about how huge San Diego is, but San Diego is huge. It's probably growing faster than L.A., isn't it?
Well, if not, we're giving them a run for their money. But anyway, this woman, after selling a TV station, a UHF or VHF TV station, and a big powerhouse AM and a big powerhouse FM, certainly had a pile of money. I think the number I heard was $355 million, might have been the number for the sale. I could be wrong, but that seems to ring a bell for me. You know, we are a corrupt place, and you often talk about the decline and fall of the Roman Empire. We are truly on similar skids, I would think. I don't know much about those days, but I sure as hell know that we're stinking corrupt in lots of places in this country. And maybe that's
okay. So I mean, you know, there's not a lot to fight about in anything that you put forward.
No,
we seldom fight as it is. But what's the remedy? I mean, I'm a big open society guy.
Yeah.
I don't believe in a hell of a lot of censorship. I think the government has a vested interest acting on behalf of we the people to step in and tell people, you know, for instance, no broadcaster, no drunk at the end of the bar can say, can argue that the President of the United States should have something awful done to him.
Yeah, and
I'm so careful about that I won't even say the actual verb.
Yeah, that is a prohibition that is responsible, it's well thought out, it's useful, and it's right. It falls within proper behavior. Okay? I have no argument with it.
And you don't, and so if a broadcaster said, but see, and we've covered this ground.
I know.
When a Glenn Beck inspires a guy to go and shoot up the Tides Foundation.
Yeah.
When Bernie Goldberg writes a book that inspires a guy to go and murder people in a church.
And wasn't Bill O'Reilly in charge?
And when Bill O'Reilly hoots, hollers, and brays about Tiller the killer until somebody goes and kills Dr. Tiller.
Yeah.
You would think in a rational society that there would be some sort of repercussion for that, but instead they hide behind the skirts of the First Amendment and they say, "My friends, I'm just an entertainer. How could I possibly know that there would be a crazy person out there who, having heard me, only I'm doing Limbaugh, not O'Reilly, but you know, how could I possibly know that there would be some crazy person out there who, after having me after having heard me scream Tiller the Killer for a month of Sundays, would actually go out and act on what I was suggesting they should act on. How could I possibly know that? That's not reasonably foreseeable.
Well, I can show you where it is, Bob, and here's how. And Limbaugh doesn't just say he's just an entertainer. He has been known to declare himself a harmless puffball, okay? So let's take Limbaugh for a moment. He's on terrestrial radio, unfortunately, getting buku bucks for sitting there, puffing on his big fat cigar, spewing hateful nonsense. But let's take Limbaugh as our example. On the one hand, he tries to say that the rhetoric in the program content part of his daily exercise in idiocy couldn't possibly inspire anybody to do anything, good, bad, or indifferent. But on the other hand, when he takes a break for words from his sponsors and extols the benefits of Snapple or whatever the hell he's pushing, doesn't he expect and intend for those very same listeners to take him up on his pitch? Now, you cannot have it both ways. If the program content, the quote entertainment portion, to hear him tell it, the entertainment portion of his show is not to be taken seriously in terms of reacting and doing something or not doing something, then the commercial pitch it should not be acted upon. You can't have it both ways, and this is where they trip.
Well, apparently for about 30 years he has.
Well, yeah, you don't pull down $15 million a year for not moving products off the shelves and not gaining ears to your program. It flies in the face of reality, Bob. And yet here we are. And you ask, is there a remedy? Is there a solution? I would hate to think that we are so far gone that nothing can be done. But when I really, truly look at it and think about it, I wonder if we're not at a point of really no return or very close to it, simply because...
Well, yeah, I'm right there with you, Scott, and let me... because, George Carlin became very famous for the 7 words that you can't say.
Yeah, I can say them. I've done a few of them.
But in reality, a list of words, with one exception in the clips that I played, a list of words is not going to cure this problem. So, a bright line rule of words you can't say isn't going to solve this problem.
Well, that's not what the problem is. It's deeper than that, Bob.
Right, and that's why I'm going to take the next step. I believe it was Potter Stewart, Supreme Court Justice, who famously said, in trying to understand or trying to come to grips with the concept of obscenity, not pornography, obscenity.
Yeah.
He said, I can't tell you what it is, but I know it when I see it.
Right.
I think that was Potter Stewart. It may not have been. Somebody will correct me. Great. We got a great ad hoc research department.
Well, it was one of the associate justices of the Supreme Court at some point.
But the question is, can you say that with regard to a radio broadcast or a TV broadcast? I can't tell you what it is, but I know it when I hear it. Because I'm thinking that a full-grown man talking about wanting to rape a 16-year-old girl, man, if that's not obscene, we don't have any concepts of obscenity left in this country. Because they go on and they say, without any redeeming artistic or social value.
Yeah.
So would anybody care to tell me what the redeeming artistic or social value is of talking into a microphone about how you'd like to rape a little girl?
I don't. Well, I can tell you for sure it's not there to be found. If that's the definition.
But see, comedy is an art. See, this is what I'm trying to get at, Scott. This is how we got here.
Yeah.
There's no redeeming artistic or social value to a snuff film. Can we agree with that?
Yeah. Oh God, yes.
There's no artistic or social redeeming social value of a pornographic movie showing people having sex with animals. Can we sign on to that one too?
Yeah.
We have laws in this country that make certain that people who make pornographic films, porn, they have to certify that everybody in that film is over age. And it has to be kept on file, and they have to report it to governmental authorities so as to make sure that there isn't any child sexual abuse taking place.
Yeah, and that wasn't always the case.
No, I mean, there's a law. I mean, it's prayer meeting Wednesday, so we can go back to one of the things that, if you find an ancient society whose God tells them, "Thou shalt not fuck the sheep," well, you only come up with a rule in a society after somebody has made it necessary to have a rule.
Yeah. The sheep have a strong.
It's like the warning on the plastic bag from the dry cleaners. Don't let your kids play in this.
Right.
Well, it's because they've proven to be dangerous, and children have been hurt and died.
Yeah.
So there are ways to put prohibitions in place. But everybody always wants to talk, when you get into First Amendment territory, everybody wants to talk about the camel's nose under the tent and the slippery slope.
Yeah, but Bob, we already know from actual experience that mildly stringent guidelines and rules and laws and regulations they do work. I come from an era when there was an equal time provision in broadcasting. I come from an era when there was the other thing, opposing viewpoints could be heard. That's equal time. But what's the other one? The fairness doctrine. Okay, I come from a time when these radio and television stations were licensed, had more frequent intervals than they are today in the public interest, need, and necessity. And if you were a license holder of a TV or radio station frequency, okay, you were required to, keep a public file where people could write in and let you know how well you were holding up your responsibility as an overseer and a caretaker of the public airwaves. And in that public file, it had to be available for inspection by interested parties, and it had to be part of the evidence that you gave to the governing body, the FCC, at license renewal time. Now, these are guidelines that by and large have gone either extinct or they have been so watered down.
Well, I mean, did any radio or TV station ever lose their license because of the comments in their public file?
I don't know, but I do know that fairness was an issue in the late 60s or early 70s at a station in Red Lion, Pennsylvania. If you look it up, you can read the particulars, because I don't have them in my memory right now, but I remember the Red Lion decision. It seems to me it was like a religious or a political broadcast that maligned somebody, and that somebody wasn't given the opportunity to respond. It's something along those lines. The Red Lion case was the name of it. As for the public file, I know that stations have been fined for not following the regulations regarding the public file. And but anyway, my overall point is there has been a time when very mild common sense regulations and rules were enforced, and there was in the 50s and 60s and 70s and into the 80s, before a lot of these changes were made, radio was entertaining. It was informative. It was responsible. It was good back then. Otherwise, young DJs would never have been attracted by it to go into it, to play the hits and run our silly little mouths and read our ad-libs off the 3x5 cards. Okay?
Read our ad-libs, yes.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is we already know that common sense rules and regulations, properly enforced, work. But what concerns me is we've already got, since going on 40 years now, generations who for them, the only TV and radio and cable that they know is what they've had for the last 25, 30, 35 years. Okay? And it will be a shock to them, to their systems, their little sensitive systems, to be shown a different way of being when it comes to radio, TV, and cable. And that's where the camel's nose under the edge of the tent comes into play. So answer to a short question, I don't know if there's a solution at this point.
Well, I'll tell you that I don't think there's a legislative solution or a regulatory solution. But the courts are still there. And I do not ever want to line up with, I mean, I get right-wing emails from the Parents Television Research Council constantly. And you know what gets them hot and bothered? Not this. They get all head up if a couple of girls or a couple of guys kiss on a TV show. Oh, then I get a goddamn blast email.
You know how you asked how can this be addressed, if not legislatively or overseeing like the FCC? Here's a way it could be addressed, or a step in the right direction. Reform the rules regarding 501c whatever corporations and the taxation benefits attached to them that aren't really there.
Well, I don't think Sirius XM, and they run some good progressive broadcasting, okay? I mean, there are some, sure. But I don't think they're a 501c3 or a 501c4. I think they're...
But I was speaking in terms of this email list that you're on from this organization who's upset over boys and boys or girls and girls kissing.
Well, what I was going toward, Scott, is the idea that there is still a court system, and there are, there's a potential out there for a ruling. I mean, I'd love to see a court get hold of these recordings. I mean, there's a little bit more of Tucker Carlson here. Check this out.
Mm-hmm.
You jerked off to her.
I didn't, actually.
Would you?
I don't know. I actually was thinking about her more in a platonic way. Like, what would she like to have dinner with?
You were thinking about cramming that. You were thinking about cramming her dinner.
I was thinking about tapping my foot next to her stall.
Anal.
Anal. That is so fantastic.
Anal. And this is the beauty contestant?
Uh-huh. This is the girl from South Carolina who said because they don't have maps in the Iraq and such as.
Yeah. And she was how old? I thought she was older than that.
16, 17 at the time.
Well, that's just crazy that any adult would say it in private, much less over-the-air broadcasting. Jesus.
But here's my question. Would there be some way of getting this into a courtroom and getting a judge to rule on whether that's obscene? Whether that is lacking any social or artistic redeeming value?
Well, at the time, you might have had a chance, but I'm thinking a statute of limitations. And I'm also thinking...
But I don't want people to come away with the notion that we're just talking about disgusting, perverted sex talk. Appealing to prurient interests. That's all it does. That's just an appeal to prurient interests.
Yeah.
But Tucker Carlson sits there and defends white supremacists. He sits there and defends actual Nazis. Now, I see a big difference between, say, Tucker Carlson on Fox defending Nazis and the ACLU defending the Nazis' right to march in Skokie, Illinois.
Yeah.
They come from a similar place, but they're not the same thing. But the same system that allows Tucker Carlson to praise Nazis and Klansmen and to be a house organ for white supremacy to the point that he is the number one personality at Stormfront. Well, the same system that does that allows him to go on Bubba the Love Sponge and talk about wanting to tap his foot next to the stall of a little teenage girl.
Well, I'll tell you this, Bob. If a case, as you've described, could ever be brought to a court, a federal court or a state court, or any court for that matter, people's court for all we know, Judge Judy. But if a case could be brought to a court of some standing, to be serious, they better file the paperwork pretty damn quick, because we both know that Mitch McConnell and that crew have done everything that they can possibly do in the last 2 years to pack the federal court system with as many Cato Institute, what is that other one? The
Federalist Society.
Federalist Society, and there's another one. It's well, you know the drill. They in the last 2 years, Mitch McConnell and his cohorts and backers and campaign contributors have worked overtime, double time quit, Bob, to pass the federal court so that unless some action is taken soon and the paperwork is filed, you may not have a chance for such a case to even be heard.
I think that's entirely possible.
And the thing about what can we do, I guess it comes down, part of the solution, I think, will be not having that type of content be easily available to people under a certain age, let's say, or under a certain IQ. That would be better. And also, how do you affect or improve or enhance the appetite of people? It gets down to the human level at some point. And how do you reform or transform or inform the appetites of people when this is all they've known for the last 25 or 35 or going on 40 years? They won't listen to reason. They won't listen to data.
Well, there was a reason Mike Judge, in coming up with the whole storyline around Idiocracy, has a portion where, the TV shows that you watch 500 years from now are Ow My Balls, and the number one movie at the Octoplex Cinema is simply called Ass, and it's a single camera shot of someone's ass for 90 minutes.
This is 500 years from now.
Well, he had to set it that way because it's actually the present reality.
Well, it's a past reality, too, for anyone who's ever seen Big Flamingos, like John Waters. There is a segment in that involving...
Yes, I know. Let's don't.
But anyway, I'd better go on that stinky note. I just wanted to chime in to say I'm with you here on exploring this question, because it's a mess. It's a hot, steaming mess. In all seriousness.
And you know what? Here's the thing: if you got rid of Tucker Carlson, if he was thrown off Fox's air tomorrow, odds are, by virtue of the operation of the law of unintended consequences, whatever comes next is worse. Tucker Carlson is worse than the guy he replaced.
Who was O'Reilly, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, their opinion shows Hannity, Laura Ingraham, Jeanine Pirro, and Tucker Carlson are full on Third Reich at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. It's whatever the solution is. Part of it is going to be regulatory. Part of it is going to be judicial. Part of it is going to be legislative. But I think the biggest chunk is going to be somehow informing, reforming, transforming the appetites of people, the mindsets of people even. And I don't know, that's going to be a rough one to get that handled. Because
so how do you respond, for instance, to the since it's Wednesday, to the religion industry people who say, well, if we just had God back, if we just had prayer in the schools, this wouldn't be happening anymore.
Oh, kiss my ass. My white, hairy ass. I was a product of God in the schools for 8 years in grade school and junior high, 2 years in high school. And granted, it was the Catholic version of it, ever changing in the 60s. But if I didn't have something in school, I certainly had prayer in school. And look how I turned out. Am I okay or what? I don't know. Who the hell knows? But in terms of public schools, it's a fallacy. It's a fallacy. In a public school supported by taxpayers to require children, I'm not real keen on them reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, to be perfectly honest, especially since they added those two words in, the late 50s, under God?
Yep.
What's this shit? Okay? Much less, it's bad enough they're doing the Pledge of Allegiance, but to bring back prayer in public schools, are you kidding me? Have you been drinking? What the hell's wrong with you, Bob?
No, but I mean, the thing is, nothing's going to happen without something resembling consensus in this country. And the theocrats aren't going to be happy until they've outlawed Islam.
Fuck them. It's not our job for them to be happy, Bob. And they're not guaranteed happiness anyway. They have the pursuit of happiness, but they're not guaranteed it. They get fucking tax break over tax break for their fucking foundations and religious corporations and houses of worship and so-called Christian schools. Fuck that shit. God damn it. What the hell's wrong with America? God, you got me going, Bob. I'm going to stroke out here if I'm not careful. And I'm not putting you on. I hear their so-called arguments, and I say, what the hell are you people drinking? What is in the water where you live? Are you crazy, people? And yes, they are. Haven't there been studies? God, let me calm down here. Jesus. Haven't there been studies, Bob, that are indicative of the notion that certain forms of religious belief and behavior has to do with faulty wiring in the brains of the people doing it?
I think that's true.
Isn't it some sort of psychological?
Well, I mean, there's all those studies about the size of the amygdala in the conservative authoritarian brain, the lizard brain.
Yeah.
It's overdeveloped in them.
And part of the problem,
But I don't think national brain surgery is an answer.
No. Part of the problem is apathy when you've got something like half of the people who are eligible to participate in the process not participating in the process. That's part of the problem. It's a crazy quilt problem, Bob, and it will require.
I mean, all honesty, I don't subscribe to Sirius, and
I used to, and I don't anymore.
And I watch, with the exception of my filthy little habit, March Madness, college football, and maybe a little bit of the Masters, because just don't hate me.
You like listening to them speak in hushed tones.
I don't.
The big putt
is
about to be made.
Yeah, I don't. I don't watch a lot of TV.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I'm still. We've Julius Geezer finally bowed to pressure and allowed the 737 MAX 8s and MAX 9s to be grounded today.
Yeah, I heard that.
after Rachel Maddow broke the story that it's possible that those two planes dropped out of the air because work stopped on a critical piece of software, a critical upgrade.
Yeah, a patch.
Yeah, that was delayed by the government shutdown. So, there's there's north of 300 people whose human lives and human blood are all over Donald Trump.
Yeah, not to mention Ethiopia and wherever the other one went down last October. Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. The two flights, Ethiopian Air and Lion Air, and it's right on him because he wanted the shutdown.
Does the ever sleep?
Never.
Does the goddess of never? I didn't think so. Yeah, I saw that today, and I said, wait a minute, didn't the head honcho at Boeing just get off the phone with Trump to flare up and down and sideways how safe?
Yeah, but you know who scared the shit out of him in the shutdown? It was the flight attendants who said, fuck it, we're going to go out on strike if this keeps up.
Yeah.
Well, it was the flight attendants who said, we got to fly on these planes, and he can't stand to admit it, but he's scared of a union that is made up primarily of women.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. Now, here's the deal. He's grounded the planes before we can get him one and paint it red, white, and blue. And that's as far as I'll go on that topic.
Oh man, I got this is cowbell worthy.
Okay.
This is just all in good fun. But Brother Deacon Asa says, I don't know why Scott's so unhappy with the words "under God" being added to the Pledge of Allegiance. After all, according to his former religion, that was Mary's default position, wasn't it?
Well, yeah. Or under Father O'Bally. On your knees, lad.
Snickers and a Coke. Snickers and a Coke.
Jesus. Oh, I forgot the other day when I called, and this will be it for today. My older brother, not the crazy one in Florida, but the one still in the D.C. area, had asked me last week if I had gotten around to watching on Netflix this miniseries documentary thing called The Keepers. And I had it on my list for months and months and months, but hadn't watched it. So at his insistence, I watched it last week, The Keepers, on Netflix. Oh, it confirmed for me, Bob, among other things, that I was right as rain to get the hell out of the Catholic organization in my late teens and not look back. Anybody that's got Netflix, watch The Keepers. It'll take you a while to wade through it, but I'm telling you, if you have any questions about the veracity and the honesty and the worthiness to be held up on a pedestal of the Roman Catholic Church, you won't after you watch The Keepers. I'm telling you, Jesus.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I get to the end of the workday here, and Agnes and I sit. Well, since the iPad died, we're watching on a little teeny tiny tablet. But we get to and I get to the end of the workday, and I don't think either one of us are inclined to watch something that heavy.
Well, that's probably true. I hadn't thought about that.
I mean, because I did Abducted in Plain Sight, and neither of us were okay. I mean, we were both falling asleep going, what the actual fuck was that? People are fucking stupid. God, once, twice, three, what?
Yeah, I know.
And so, and right now, I'm waiting for American Gods to play out, so that I can binge watch that, because that's another thing. You know, I mean, the transforming media landscape. Who sits around waiting for a week for a program to come on?
Well, I won't be doing it again until Better Call Saul returns on AMC sometime later this year. But you're right. Hardly anybody does it. I mean, I guess the only people who still consume television that way are those who are out in the sticks somewhere without...
And I'm still absolutely fascinated by the irony that, and The Widow on Amazon Prime, it's not great. It's
what is it called?
The Widow, Kate Beckinsale.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's not great. It's not terrible. It's not a dog. It's not anything near as good as, say, The Night Manager. But the triggering event in it is a plane crash. And I mentioned this the other night. No spoilers. But it's a plane crash in Africa of a Boeing 737.
Which show is this?
The Widow.
All right. And it's on Netflix?
No, it's on Amazon Prime, and it premiered like March 1st.
All right. Well, I think I added it to my list, but I certainly have not watched it yet.
And, well, I mean, I'm not even recommending it. But what I find interesting is it's the crash of a Boeing 737, and a few days later, Ethiopian Air falls out of the sky.
Yeah. Well,
and what I'm getting at is, you know, a few months previously, the 737 fell out of the sky, Lion Air in Indonesia.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, for instance, the pilot for the Americans was written by a former, I think, FBI agent who knew some of the inner workings of that counter espionage kind of stuff, and ginned up a pretty good 6-season run out of that.
Oh, a great series.
And I can't help wondering if maybe, because before things ever get to the FAA but there are people out there who know that something ain't right about something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why is it a 737 and not an Airbus A320?
Isn't there a list somewhere of TV shows or movies that have been predictive of events that occurred in real life? I know there's some that are obvious, but I can't think of them now. That's worth having the ad hoc research committee take a look at, finding that list. But anyway, I'm going to let you go.
Okay, okay, I'm sorry, you just got mail. So we got one more thing we got to do.
Is there a check enclosed?
No.
Oh,
but we got a note from Robert in Australia, who actually, does enclose a check every month. Robert in Australia talking about the Cardinal George Pell sentencing.
Oh yeah.
And this goes to your statement of I've never felt so right about getting the hell away from there and never looking back.
Yeah.
Robert in Australia writes, Chief Judge Peter Kidd sentences Cardinal George Pell to 6 years in prison with a non-parole period of 3 years and 8 months for the sexual abuse of 2 boys at St. Patrick's Cathedral in the 1990s. One of the 13-year-old boys who was abused by Pell died in 2014 of a heroin overdose.
Mm-hmm.
Some Catholics will go into denial, but for the others, I have to ask, why do you believe any of it? He sexually abused 2 boys while lecturing the rest of you on morality.
Well, and see, that's why I was recommending The Keepers, Bob. Yes, it's heavy. Yes, it was actually a true series of stories and incidents. But unless we know what the hell has gone on before, there's no way to address it in the here and now or in the future. And this was not a show where you sat eating popcorn and popping milk duds and laughing and clapping and whistling the theme song of the film on the way out the door. This was some heavy shit. But damn it, we need some heavy shit in the world today in terms of coming to grips with the reality that we face, because that's step one in resolving or solving whatever a situation is. Unless you can look at it and get its dimensions and the nature of it, there's no way that you're ever going to bring about a fix for it. I mean, come on, it's.
I know.
Yeah, I get it. I get his point, and I'm glad that they sent that cardinal to jail for 6 years, or at least 3 years and 8 months.
Yeah, but it needed to be a lot more. Well, it's kind of like Paul Manafort getting, he'll do 7 years now.
Yeah, God, what the hell's? Don't get me started. I know.
We'll save it for another day. Scott, thank you for your outrage, my friend.
Well, thank you for reminding me to get outraged every now and again. And Horn family, be part of the solution, and not part of the problem.
Exactly.
And kick in some bucks if you can.
Thanks. Appreciate that, Scott.
Take care, man.
Later. It's our buddy Scott in San Diego. And yeah, we're at we got about 29 minutes left in the program and $150 to raise. And look, I'm having all kinds of internet problems this evening. If you want to get into the program, use the toll-free line, 844-843-4676. We know that works based on what just the conversation I just had with Scott. I don't know what in the hell's going on with we pay a fortune for these things, and they can't keep it up and running. And you do trouble ticket after trouble ticket after trouble ticket. Well, we think we found it. You didn't find it. So, sorry. But use the toll-free number if you want to get into the program here in the last few minutes. I want to finish the whole sordid Tucker Carlson sickening escapade with his meltdown response to having been caught in all this filth.
Just 2 points to leave you with. First, Fox News is behind us, as they have been since the very first day. Toughness is a rare quality at a TV network, and we are grateful for that. Second, we've always apologized when we're wrong, and we'll continue to do that. That's what decent people do. They apologize. But we will never bow to the mob. Ever. No matter what.
And again, if you want to find that whole clip, it's over at Now This News on Twitter. That's why the music was in there. So, objecting to him talking about wanting to rape a little teenage girl, that somehow makes us a mob. Do you feel like a mob? Because I don't feel like a mob. I just keep thinking about my granddaughter, who's not very far from being that age. Time flies. And how maybe Tucker Carlson would get on a radio show and talk about wanting to have sex with her if he found her sufficiently appealing. Hold on here. Tracy's trying to call in. Tracy, Skype is being absolutely unbearable. If you want in, maybe this is you. Is that you?
It's Lady B.
Lady B, how are you?
Who are you waiting for?
Well, no, Tracy was trying to get in on the Skype line that I'm not having any luck with at all tonight. That's got me halfway to pulling my hair out. And but
I'm
no,
sorry about that. Did you? I'm like, did you want me to hang up?
no, not at all. Don't you dare.
Yeah, this is a lot better connection. I've been hesitant to call because the last time I called you, the connection was lousy. I could barely understand what you were saying.
Oh, no.
So it would be awkward, you know. It's like I didn't want to not be able to follow along with the conversation. So. How are you?
I feel a little filthy.
Well, isn't it like 70 there? Okay.
It's 75 in the Fabulous Horn Studios at the magnificent Kincaid Mansion and got up near 70 today. Yes.
Wow. Oh, well, it snowed here. We had a blizzard.
Yeah, I heard there was a bomb. What do they call it? The bomb cyclone? Kevin in Colorado Springs was telling me about it earlier by email.
Yeah, it's rather bizarre, but like Sunday and Monday, it was 70. But, you know, that's what they say about Colorado. Wait 5 minutes. Literally, you know, it's just tomorrow it might, probably by the weekend it'll be sunny again. So.
Well, we're 2 or 3 days behind your weather, so we get a high of 45 and a low of 25 on Saturday. So
yeah.
you know
Wow.
what you're getting now will get to us later. But
okay.
I'm still going to be a little ray of sunshine because spring is coming.
Yeah. I mean, you can tell around here the green is wanting to come out. So it's certainly not as green as the south, but you know. We have so much sunshine. I think that's what makes it better for us to be able to handle. So, but anyway, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. You are a listener. So, I guess I do have to talk. No, I had sent you that email earlier, and I wanted to clarify. I was a jock in the 90s into the early 2000s. And it was I remember the shock jocks coming out. I remember the Howard Stern. I went to see I read his book, and then I went to see his movie. So, you know, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time as a disc jockey. I lived that life. I understood that some guys were in it to make the money. But I really think it's hard to say without being, you know, like I said, that bitch, the one who kind of, you know, swells the party. I don't want to be like that, but I never did like what was going on. I really thought it was a bunch of kind of high school frat boy bullshit, and I didn't. I don't know.
Yeah, and there was a proliferation of them. You know, Bubba the Love Sponge, Opie and Anthony. Most all of them were trying to do Howard Stern's shtick, and Howard could be serious from time to time. And so, you know, I don't just damn him across the board, but people like the Grease Man in D.C. You know, I think he got suspended after the Air Florida crash or was that Howard? I don't remember. But anyway, calling the ticket desk and asking how much a one-way flight was to the whatever it was Street Bridge in D.C.
And it's always a bunch of guys. I'm sorry. Just guys who want to push things and take it just too far. They go right to the edge. But you've always got somebody who oversteps it. I think Howard was able, and he's not perfect by any means. I mean, yeah, a lot of us jocks, we liked him. But Howard kind of led the brigade on this. He wasn't the first, but he was certainly the most prominent. I mean, even, I would say, what's his name? He used to work for MSNBC The Morning. Stern. Imus. Imus was cool. He started out as a legitimate jock. But then it just, I mean, it was like going into a sports store or Home Depot, and everybody was there to just feed your masculine ego, and you wanted to keep pushing it and keep pushing it. You know, and some guys went too far, and some guys skated just enough under the line that they didn't, you know, they're able to walk away. I'm not sure that was a good thing either, but I don't know.
Well, and I mean, you're identifying the conundrum There's the second use of that word this evening. The conundrum that Scott and I were trying to delve into. Bright line rules aren't going to solve this problem. But somewhere along the way, and it's I almost feel like Tucker Carlson is benefiting from some sort of backlash against Me Too.
Yeah. But that always. Oh, go ahead.
No, please.
No, I would say that cycle comes and goes, and I hate how. I mean, because 90s, 2000s, it was like there was the backlash. It was the backlash against. What's that? Oh my God! I just thought of the term. I wrote it down. Political correctness.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this whole backlash against people basically giving a shit and saying, stop saying those things. Stop always talking about a woman's boobs. Stop, making the jokes about minorities. Stop. It was just, I don't know. Maybe coming out of the 80s it wasn't as harsh, but certainly now there's a lot of women that are standing up and saying, this is ridiculous. We've put up with this shit for 20, 30 years. Why do we keep doing this? And there probably will be a backlash. I think that's just something we do in America. We push back. We get to a point where we're just like, okay, my feelings have been hurt long enough. I've been humble long enough. Now I want to lash out again. I'm not sure how to articulate it, and you certainly don't have the time.
Well, why does Tucker Carlson have a constitutional right to a television show on Fox? That's what I can't sort out.
Because he was born to that. That's his privilege. White boys like Tucker Carlson, frat boys. I mean, this is their life. They were groomed to this. We're supposed to take our spoon and eat up the bullshit that they serve to us because they know better, because they're privileged. That's been my whole life. It's always been that way. Of course he was going to be successful. Of course he was going to. And it didn't matter if he had one iota of talent or not. And quickly, I had sent you an email. I don't know if you got it. It was about a young black
I did.
man
I thought that was a fantastic story.
Yeah. 41 scholarships to college. And like I noted, his daily battle was, I don't know if he came from a particularly harsh neighborhood or not, but certainly being a black male. I mean, as soon as he walked in the door, it was going to be like extra scrutiny on his test scores and this whole. And again, that might be a whole thing that I don't want to get into, but the fact that he made it into adulthood, the fact that he is able to go to college is an accomplishment. And I don't think, people will always jump on minorities and say, well, you had this extra advantage, or people went out of their way to accommodate you, so therefore you don't deserve it. But with these schools, admittance programs that they've had with these rich kids, it just goes to show it doesn't matter what color you are. I mean, we have the middle group, of course. But, people, the rich kids, instead of picking on them, they want to pick on minorities and underprivileged and say, oh, you got there because of affirmative action, or you got there because... And it happens on the other end, too, just as much every single day. And I think people are they acknowledging it now? Sure. But will it be forgotten? Absolutely. People are going to forget about this and move on to the next scandal. The interesting thing is, I think, with Chinese people, Asian students who are filing suit against elite colleges in this country, because it's like, look, we're doing the test scores. We're doing everything that you say should grant us admittance. If we can't get in by our ethnicity, then we're doing everything else, and you're still not letting us in. So what's going on? What is it that you want,
Well, yeah, and the young man applied more Michael Love is his name. People need to know about him.
Mm-hmm.
He's a senior at Cornerstone Health and Technology in Detroit. He applied to over 50 schools for next year. And he's been offered $300,000 in scholarship money, and he's been accepted by 41 different colleges. And I dare and defy anybody to say, well, yeah, that's because he's black.
Yeah. And you'll always have to live. I have to live that down. We always have to go through life with that burden. Oh, you're an AA hire. Oh, you're EEOC. I mean, and it doesn't matter, what effort I can put into it. The initial impression is going to be, how did you get here? living with that, is it's not pleasant. It's not. I don't know. It's. I'm just grateful to be here. I'm just grateful for the people I had a chance.
Yeah, I'm just happy to be in the show. I just want to help the team win. Right.
Yeah. I might have got in the door through AA, but I stayed. I'd like to think because I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
And that's just something that every African American student with an education from a higher school, from an Ivy League or whatnot.
Well, so this sleazy affair that was announced yesterday, it has to just be sickening.
It's typical.
I was looking at. I finally saw an article that showed pictures of the people who've been charged. Last night we had the question Jude asked, why is all the focus on the two women, and where are the guys? And we finally saw the guys, and I was clicking through. I don't know that I saw them all, but wasn't any black folks in it.
No.
But then again, maybe they didn't have the money to pay the bribes. I mean.
Maybe. I'm not saying that. Who knows? Will and Jada may have. Well, I think their kids are kind of too weird to want to go to college. There may be some black celebrities. There may be some wealthy people who would hope to get a building named after them if they donate money. Absolutely. I shouldn't say and discriminate and say it's only white folks who are doing this, but I would say that rich white folks are highly prominent in that. As for me, I don't think I would dare to try to go to a school that I wasn't qualified to go to, realizing that the pressure on me would be too much.
Right, and the legacy, you're not going to get that legacy C that George W. Bush got. But,
absolutely not.
But see, that's what's supposed to separate, or supposedly, that the way I've always looked at it is, at the state university that I went to, that I graduated from, I had some fantastic professors, but they weren't all fantastic. Some were absolute bums who were just marking time. And I did terrible in their classes because if they didn't care, I didn't care. And if I didn't care, well, they got paid, I got a C. But I always understood that the difference was that when you move up into into Ivy League ranks, that there's a much higher proportion of really, really good professors, and that's that's one of the distinctions. And the other is that you immediately tap into a network of people who will help you along just because. Oh wow, yes, I see you went to Throckmorton University. Well, come on in. Would you like some money? And that's how that network works.
But I would think that. Oh.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't know that that's the case now.
Well, I think teachers have kind of given up on the whole idea of whatever there was, that whole stature, the things that you gained from being educated, and to try to make sure that no dumb student ever slipped through the cracks. I mean, I think it came up when contract negotiations came up, too. We need to raise XYZ amount of money. You need to give this certain grade. You need to do this. Some people might argue, oh, well, that has to do with the whole political culture, the whole change in society where we can't beat kids in class. I'm not saying that.
But if you've got
may have unfairly...
If you've got a 4'9", if you've got a high school senior girl and she's 4'9", and you Photoshop her head, because this happened, you Photoshop her head onto a young woman who is 5'11", and you get the women's hoops coach to say, "Wow, yeah, no, she's definitely she's a real, she's a blue chip recruit. So we better let her in." Well, when she shows up and she's 4'8", is nobody going to notice that? I mean, I'm not yelling at you, Lady B. You know this. But this is where it all kind of falls apart for me. Was no one paying attention?
I think that, I don't know, money talks. Maybe there's a lot of pressure, Maybe there are teachers who are like, how do I get tenure if I don't do this? It's hard. I want to say teachers may be just as much as victims as they are the people that help keep the scam going. And that's a sad thing to say because I respect teachers tremendously. But, okay, if you've got administration breathing down your neck and telling you, you have to admit so-and-so's kid, you have to give this kid a B or C. Because if you don't, it's going to hurt the school. And if it hurts the school, it's going to hurt you. And I think that's the kind of pressure that they live under.
Was it Joe Paterno who once asked how many thousands of people ever bought tickets to a poetry reading or something like that?
Yeah. And you could say that too, Bob. That is an interesting thing too, because some people would come back and say, well, look at all the athletes. Supposedly Magic Johnson couldn't read when he finished college and all. And again, that's a whole other area there too. I've always thought of sports as this is an ugly thing to say. What do you call a type of slavery where you get paid pretty well?
College athletics?
Yeah. I mean, sure, these brothers are getting the opportunity to leave the streets and to do certain things, but they're not coming out. A lot of them don't come out any better. I wrote a paper about how a lot of the average NFL player makes $300,000 a year. A lot, but certainly not the millions and the billions that their owners are scraping in.
Right, and that's 300.
Their average career, 400,000. I'm sorry, their career is 3.3 years. Average.
Yeah. So over a lifetime, and when you factor in the head injuries and the Parkinson's disease and no, that's not much at all.
Mm-hmm. But Bob, think about it. If you were 18, 19 years old, full of testosterone, the ladies are looking at your muscles, you're running down the field, thousands of fans screaming at you. You're not thinking about, what the CTE is going to do. You're not thinking about the torn ligaments and muscle and all the problems. You don't care. And then if you go into a disadvantaged neighborhood, right there, you've got young men that are willing to do anything to live that life. Because for the past 30, 40, 50 years, we've been told this is the life that you want to live. You'll never live in the suburbs unless you do this. You'll never live in that gated community unless you are willing to tear up your body for this. Because that's the only way you'll get there. You're not going to get there by getting a college degree or, at least a decent one. Then you got to compete for jobs. Yeah. So for some people, that's kind of the route they want to take. I have a nephew who's just absolutely adorable. I love him very much. He's 25. And he went to a college here in Colorado, 3 years, football, stars, national, wonderful. And he broke his leg during the last season, his third year. And he told his father, everything they went through to get it repaired and everything. And he broke his leg on the field. And he told his dad, I don't want to play anymore. I'm not going back. So for his fourth year, he didn't play. 3 years in, he didn't play. And his father was disappointed and crushed. My brother-in-law was crushed because he wanted his son to go to the NFL. And I was like, well, don't you think that, getting his computer science degree, that he'll be able to, do okay? And my brother-in-law was like, I don't know. I really wanted him to go to the NFL. I mean, he was absolutely crushed. I was so angry. It took me a while, but I had to realize that's some people's mindset.
Well, fathers invest a lot of vicarious living, and
yeah.
Well, to say fathers and sons, mothers and sons, fathers and daughters,
Mm-hmm.
Parents and children.
Mm-hmm.
But if you come from that, if you're part of that athletic culture, and in particular, if you come from a state whose a great deal of whose self-esteem is predicated on the success or failure of the sports teams, then it's going to be pressed down and shaken together. It's going to be.
His father's Texas. Yeah, his father's Texas born. So absolutely. His father's from Dallas, Texas. Absolutely. Yeah. That mentality is just frightening. It's frightening. But
Alabama,
sometimes
Georgia,
yeah.
Louisiana.
Mm-hmm. And that's the whole life that they see. I hate to say it, but what are you going to be? You're going to be a baller or you're going to be a rapper? Wow. In 2019.
Choices.
So, I don't want to put down those brothers. I mean, I've seen them all. They work hard. They do what they need to do. In 2019, we still have some limitations. We still have some people who do not believe that they're going to go any further than where they've come from. They'll get a little better, but other than that, this is their fate, and I don't know what to say.
And the concept of the dumb jock. If you can memorize what you have to do in an entire book of plays, you're not a dumb jock. You're teachable, but the thing is, in the athletic forum, you've run up against a teacher who cares whether or not you learn. It may not necessarily be the case if you're a 6'7" black kid who runs a 4.3 40. Whoever's teaching you the Canterbury Tales may not care as much as the wideouts coach does.
They have their own condos. 4 guys to a condo. Each of them had their own rooms, a messy kitchen. I mean, they did pretty good. It was a good life. He met his future wife there. They have a beautiful baby boy, my great nephew. He's incredible. His dad said he's not going to play football. But the life that they get to lead, they're superstars for that moment. 3 of his teammates actually did. I kid you not. 3 of his teammates actually did. The 3 brothers got women pregnant and had to leave school before their 4 years. It still happens, even in Colorado. It's a sad reality. But that's the only life that they look forward to. That's all they saw. That's all. They joined the military. 2 of them joined the military. One of them, I don't know where he's working. So for Colorado, it's, I don't know. I guess you have some choices, but mostly military would probably be number 1 for a lot of young black men here. A lot of guys from the South, end up Fort Carson. Some of the military bases around here, enlisted soldiers. So it's not just sports; it's that way.
Well, that's called the poverty draft, and you get you get a lot of hillbillies in that too. In this same vein, but a slightly different subject, Lady B. And by the way, you got a note from a note from Tracy. She said, "Love me some Lady B. Please tell Lady B that I humbly bow to her phone call. It's always awesome to hear from her. Hell, I can call any old time. I'd much rather listen to her than hear myself ramble on. I love hearing a strong woman speak truth to power." So, yeah.
Tracy, girl, I'm sorry. I did not want to block your shine there, girlfriend. Always call Bob. I love listening to Tracy.
One of the things I love is that people on the people who call this program have their own little fan clubs. And I mean, I get notes that, hey, we haven't heard from fill in the blank. How is she or how is he? And I'm like, I hope they're okay. It's like Ron and Raleigh was. I usually hear from Ron and Raleigh 2 or 3 times during a program, but he was in internet hell. I figured that somebody had changed the shift that he was working, because that's happened before. But no, he was just busy being screwed over by an internet service provider. But I wanted to share a story with you on the way out the door, just to kind of put a bow on all of this. I ran across a story today, and it's an important story. And it's peer-reviewed science, the real deal. And it was published in USA Today. The author was the reporter is Doyle Rice. And the headline reads, and this means something to me because it actually touches on some things that I have learned about over the course of the things that I do. Study finds a race gap in air pollution. Whites largely cause it. Blacks and Hispanics breathe it.
I saw that, yeah.
And it talks about PM 2.5, which is a particulate, an airborne particulate standard that the EPA uses. And what these people who did the research found out is that it's exactly what it says in the headline. If you're black or Hispanic, you are far more likely to breathe this garbage than white folks are. But I read it, and the first thing I thought was, well, I can give you one place where maybe that general statement doesn't hold up, and that's Appalachia. Because what they're talking about in this study is PM 2.5 particulate pollution that comes from coal-fired power plants, that comes from exhaust pipes, things like that. Well, here in the belly of the beast in West Virginia, which is a white state, that's not to say we don't have an African-American population. We do. It's...
What, 3?
Stop that. Yeah. No, it's 2, and I know them both. They're both my best friends. Yeah, because some of my best friends.
That's right.
Yeah. Let's just finish the trifecta on that. But in Appalachia, in West Virginia, because it is so white, it's poor white people who are living, and I'm not being exclusive, but mainly poor white people who live at the foot of mountaintop removal operations and breathe this same filth. And so Appalachia is apparently the one place where it's okay to subject white folks to the same things that, on a national basis, African Americans and Hispanics are subjected to. And of course, the common thread in all of this is, of course, poverty, because you never see a McMansion community, a gated McMansion community, next to a coal-fired power plant or underneath a mountaintop removal operation.
Yeah, but here's the sad and sobering thought, though. It's still like people causing problems for other people. I don't mean to be so frank, but...
No. It is. I mean, and that's some, that's rich white folks who don't live in Appalachia who are more than happy to poison people here. But here's what makes it even more outrageous. As shocking as it is to conceive, Lady B, Beavis, I guess he's Beavis. I don't know if he's Butthead or Beavis, Udi or Cootie, Uday or Cootie. Don Jr., Dim's son, apparently saw this story and was outraged, tweeting the following: "Just when you thought you've seen it all, now we have racist air. This insanity has to stop."
That child needs to be on his meds.
I mean, really? I mean, that's what you get at, because, he can't read anything without putting some sort of white wing grief spin on it. Nobody said the air is racist, but racist behaviors contribute to the problem. And just because he can't understand peer-reviewed science doesn't mean it's not real.
But he's so isolated, he's so insulated, he's clueless. And that happens a lot. I mean, he has no idea how the world works. He has no idea. And those are the people that we have leading our world. But anyway, you're at the top of the hour, probably a minute over. I've got to let you know.
Well, I will roll on. Maybe we'll have a little more time next time. I really appreciate the call. Thank you, Lady B.
Thank you, Bob. Have a good night.
You have a lovely evening too, and stay warm.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
The incomparable Lady B calling from Colorado. Yeah, and just on the way out the door, just so you'll know how stupid dim sum is. About 100,000 Americans die every year from air pollution. This goes back to what I've said on so many occasions about what you can't see can kill you. That's been one of our struggles, getting people to understand the nature of the harm in mountaintop removal operations. What you can't see can kill you. So those 100,000 Americans who die from air pollution every year, if you take everybody in the United States who is murdered in a year, and you add that to everyone who dies in a car crash every year, the people who die from air pollution every year still outnumber both of those. You could probably say car crashes, murders, airplane crashes, and the white-wing domestic terrorism attacks. You're still seeing more deaths from particulate air pollution. So, I wanted to make sure that and maybe we'll talk more about that tomorrow, Thorn in the Side Thursday. Thanks, everybody, and thanks for putting up with my stupid internet problems. This is breathtakingly annoying. Hopefully I'll have it fixed by tomorrow. As soon as I sign off here, I'm calling tech support and throwing a fit. When you pay what we pay, you earn the right to throw a fit. We finished the evening with $150 to raise, so tomorrow it'll be $350 for Thorn in the Side Thursday. Thanks to all of you who keep the program on the air. Thanks to all of our subscribers, and thanks to everybody who kicks in during the program. Thanks to all of you who share your precious finite time engaging in this little conversation. Thanks to our all-volunteer staff. I think I was the only moderator in the chat room this evening, so thanks to me. Thanks to our news ninjas. Thank you, Brother Deacon Asa, headon.live. Thank you, John Fox in Australia. Thank you, Ben Birch, whiterosesociety.org. Thanks to the hardest working, bravest people I know, the men and women of Coal River Mountain Watch, crmw.net. 20 years working to make people aware of the very sorts of things I was just talking about. And always, 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 Gina, it's all for you. Later, y'all.